Hello everyone. If you are new to my channel, then consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do it. Thanks. By the way, I also have a Naruto fanfiction channel. If you are interested, the link is in the description. Lost One by Hyperguy Oda-sama recently revealed that Luffy's devil fruit was not what we thought. So here's a question. What if Luffy not only had the power of a god, but the guidance of one as well? Luffy's harem as his entire crew. Basically, Luffy is going to be really overpowered from the start, and he will be able to create devil fruits. I don't own anything, adios.
Chapter 1. The prophecy is set. Monkey D. Luffy and Nika. Pirates were said to be the scourge of the seas. Remorseless killers and plunderers who sought only treasure and power at the cost of innocent lives and their own morality. What many didn't know, however, was that 1 in every 10 crews were actually quite decent. These peace-made pirates cared only for adventure and the thrill of the unknown. Sure, they would rob people and cause trouble, but only if you pissed them off first. And so the red-haired pirates were quite content to simply drink and goof around in the local tavern, much to the delight of their biggest fan. A 7-year-old boy in a white shirt, jeans and a recently made scar under his left eye was clearly ecstatic just being around them. "Hey, Shanks," he asked, "can I come with you on your next adventure?" The red-haired captain himself just laughed into his flagon, banging on the bar top. "Ah ha 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 ha, Luffy, come on now, you're way too young to be a pirate." "I am not," the boy whined. "I can swim real good, I'm brave, and I can punch really, really hard." "Hey, nice try, Pipsqueak." Shanks ruffled the boy's hair for good measure, making him growl in embarrassment. The other pirates laughed along to add salt in the wound. Sure, it was all in good fun, but that didn't save Luffy's pride. The boy was then greeted by a plate of steak thanks to the young lady tending the bar. "Don't feel too bad, Luffy. I think you can be a great pirate." "Wow, thanks Machino." The young boy dug in while Shanks just smiled at him. "Now, Luffy, you don't want to take advantage of her hospitality, do you?" "Of course not. When I'm a pirate, I'll bring back a ton of treasure to pay her back." That brought another round of laughs from Shanks's men while Luffy mostly ignored them. In the back of his mind, however, he wanted to prove them wrong. Okay, so the knife under the eye thing backfired, and was probably gonna get him hell from Gramps later. But he knew he could do it. All he needed was a chance to prove he'd be the greatest pirate ever. Then the boy's eyes turned to the open treasure chest sitting behind Machino's bar. Inside is a glimmering golden fruit covered in swirls, shining in the sunlight coming in through the side window. Suddenly he barely remembers the plate of meat he just ate, his stomach growling in need. He guessed it belonged to Shanks, but he didn't care. Luffy needed it. "Hey, this'll teach you to laugh at me." He snatches the fruit away once Machino is busy at the tap, sinking his teeth into it. "Wow, this is delicious. It's easily the best fruit he's ever had." He quickly went back for a second bite, then a third, noisily gulping each one down. "Hey, Luffy, you shouldn't eat just because you're upset," Shanks tried to say, but he was ignored. Then the captain noticed the empty box. His smile faded and his eyes widened in panic. The devil fruit. Luffy loudly swallows the last bite, just in time for Shanks to grab him by the shoulders. "Luffy, did you eat the fruit in that chest?" "Yeah, it was really yummy." That made the pirate step back. Devil fruits were supposed to taste like utter crap. Shanks wanted to ask more, but then suddenly the kid's eyes rolled back, almost falling off the bar stool. The entire party stopped dead at the sight, Machino yelping in terror as all of the pirates crowded around. No one even noticed when a crowd of bandits entered. For Luffy, he woke up not in the bar but in a pitch-black void. His head felt sore like his Gramps just gave him a fist of love. "Hello, Shanks. Machino, where am I? Oh, sorry about that, I haven't had company in eons, let me get the lights." The whole void suddenly turned white, forcing Luffy to clamp his eyes shut. OWWW. Too bright. Gwahahahaha. Oh gods, that never gets old. When are any of you slowpokes gonna start wearing glasses? "That's not funny, you jerk. Turn it off. You didn't say please." Grr. The taunting ethereal voice did lighten up the light enough so Luffy could actually look around. He finally caught sight of something. A laughing black silhouette moving along the plane of light. "Who the heck are you?" "Oh, nobody really," the shadow said with an impish grin, a set of pearly whites against the black. "Just your average deity looking for an excuse to wreck shit, and looky here. I just found it." Luffy looked from side to side, not seeing anyone or anything besides him. His head tilted to the side in confusion. "What is it?" "Ooh, yep, I definitely made the right choice with you. I can just see the world trembling in fear from you, kiddo. Stop making fun of me. Stop making it so fun." The voice taunted back before the shadow itself started to ripple and reveal the actual person. An 8-foot-tall lanky man in billowing white robes with equally stark hair that more resembled fluffy clouds. Luffy might have said he looked silly if not for his face. Not only were his eyes as gold as the fruit he ate, they seemed to almost glow with manic joy. On top of that, He had a smile so wide it showed off his gums that made the boy want to laugh and run away at the same time. Who are you? Well, I have many names depending on which spot of the multiverse I'm in. Peridot, Discord, Loki. That one is really damn popular right now. And Alistair or a Fubidu, my little badass in the making, can call me Nika. Okay. Luffy's head already hurt. Just standing around this guy was like looking directly into the sun. So, why am I here? That fruit you just ate. You know how devil fruits are supposed to grant a power? Yeah, Shanks told me about them. What does mine do? Yours is the winning ticket in the superpower lottery. You've eaten the human fruit model. Nika. That means you get to meet me and become my personal champion. Huh? What does that mean? It means you're gonna have everything you've ever wanted and more, kid. And anyone who stops you is gonna end up a splat mark on the pavement. You said you want to be a pirate, right? Yeah, can you help me be a great pirate? Nope. Huh? Why not? Because you aren't gonna be just a great pirate, you're gonna be the best. You're gonna make that Gold Roger look like a deck swabber. You're gonna be the next king of the pirates. Luffy's face lit up like a lighthouse. King of the pirates? Really? You can do that? Yes, but it isn't gonna be quick. You're gonna have to do most of the work. This isn't the kind of story where I just snap my fingers and make you an all-powerful god. I mean, if I could do that, do you think I'd be sitting here playing tiddlywinks with myself for almost 800 years? Playing what now? Don't ask, you'll understand when you're older. The bottom line is you'll be my avatar. A representation of me. Basically, I act through you on the mortal plane because I'm stuck here. You're not gonna control me, are you? Heck no. Where's the fun in that? No. Long story short is that I point you in a good direction to go and you take it from there. Think of me as your guardian angel who only occasionally screws with you for my own amusement. Luffy was deep in thought. On the one hand, this guy was weirder than weird and had already mocked him several times. On the other hand, he really wanted to be an awesome pirate. And just being around this guy felt unusual, like he was standing directly under the sun. Something in his gut told the boy that this was all real. And this Nika was dead serious despite the massive vulpine smile. Okay, Nick, I'm in, attaboy, kid. This world's officially gonna be yours now. But first, it's time for you to get back to the plot. The readers are getting pretty sick of exposition. The who? Try and land on your feet. A hole suddenly opened up and Luffy fell through with a scream. He soon landed back first on the bed his body was sleeping in with a shout. Luffy, it's okay, calm down. The boy opened his eyes and had to adjust to the low lighting of the room. He recognized this place, the back room. He occasionally stayed when Gramps trained him to the point of unconsciousness. He turned and saw the lady herself watching over him. As soon as their eyes met, the lady smiled. Oh, phew, you're okay. You had us all real worried there, Luffy. Luffy looked outside, the moon high in the sky. How long have I been here? About 8 hours. Hold on, let me tell the others you're awake. Machino stepped out and soon walked back in with a very familiar pair that made Luffy smile. Shanks. Ben, hey there, kid, the captain said before sitting down on the edge of the bed. You gave us all a real scare. Luffy, what happened to you? The first mate asked, even pulling the cigarette from his mouth. I've never heard of someone falling unconscious just from eating a devil fruit. You mean that's not normal? Not at all. Usually, a person's power will manifest immediately. The only thing that would make them go under would be falling in the sea or touching sea stone, but neither of those things were around. Luffy thought to himself. He did hear about how you couldn't swim after eating one of those fruits, but nothing about a weird stone. Trust me, kid, you're not gonna be doing much swimming in your line of work. What the? Luffy? What's wrong? Shanks, you didn't hear him. Hear who? Luffy, there's no one here but me, Ben, and Machino. The startled boy looked around. Sure enough, the pirates and bartender looked at him like he was crazy. Luffy then looked down in embarrassment only to hear that same mocking laugh in his head. Aw man, clichés be damned. The whole, what was that? Routine never stops being funny. Wahahahaha. Luffy, are you sure you're okay? Machino asked, kneeling down. You didn't hit your head, did you? No, you didn't. No, I'm fine. A loud gurgle rang through the room. Luffy looked down and suddenly felt his stomach was empty. Oh, I get it now, you're just hungry. Shanks sighed. Machino, would you mind? Not at all, I'll be right back, Luffy. She stepped out and left the youngster alone with the two buccaneers. Shanks then placed a hand on Luffy's shoulder. Hey, Luffy? I didn't mean to make you so upset. Sorry if I hurt your feelings. No, it's okay, Shanks. I guess I am too young to be a pirate. Yeah, but look on the bright side, starting later means you have to prepare. I wasn't kidding when I said to give yourself 10 years. There's a lot that comes with being a pirate. He's actually right. Little boys tend to get one of two jobs on pirate ships, cabin boy or bait. Yeah, I guess, and with that, Machino walked in a hearty helping of meat that immediately took Luffy's attention. Shanks just chuckled. Well, you seem alright to me. I'll be in town for a few more days. Okay, Bye, Shanks, Luffy, don't talk with your mouth full. He swallowed and apologized to Machino as she left, leaving the boy alone with his meal. Once he was done eating, Luffy's focus turned back to the voice in his head. That wasn't funny, you know, au contraire, pipsqueak. I personally thought it was hilarious. But yeah, now's a good time to mention that I can telepathically communicate with you and only you. He let out a sigh before turning in for the night, wondering just what would happen now. In the halls of Marineford, Vice Admiral Monkey D. Garp was dealing with the most hated menace of all the Navy, paperwork. Darn pencil-pushing kids, he grumbled as he redid the form in front of him for the 4th time. They better hope their records are as clean as the Peru. He looked at the orange and blue-shelled transponder snail ringing on his desk, wondering who could be calling him this early in the morning. Figuring he could use the distraction, he picked up the line. Hello? Hey Gramps, it's me. Luffy. He balked. How'd you get my number? It took a lot of asking around, but I met up with a Marine who gave it. Sorry if I'm bothering you. Garp was puzzled beyond belief. Not only about the call but the sheer sadness in Luffy's voice. The snail looked half ready to cry whenever it spoke. No, it's no trouble at all. What's the matter, Luffy? It's Sabo. He's dead. What? How? What happened? Did pirates get him? Luffy then recounted the burning of Grey Terminal and how Sabo's boat was shot down by the departing world nobles for daring to be in the way. Garp snarled under his breath. Of freaking course, it was one of them. When he spoke, he had to keep his rage under control. This was the one time Luffy didn't need discipline. Luffy, I'm really sorry to hear that. I know how close you three were. Are you and Ace okay? Yeah, we're fine. Dayton's actually been really nice to us. She even brought us food for once. I'll have to thank her next time I'm around. But Gramps, there's something I wanted to ask you. Yes, what's that? When you come back, I want you to train me even harder. Huh? You mean it? Yeah, I am. I want to do something really important with my life. Well, that's great, Luffy. I'll look into coming over as soon as I can. You and Ace just stay safe, alright? Sure thing. See you soon, Grandpa. The snail clicked off and an elated Garp strode out of his office. It was finally happening. Luffy was interested in joining the Marines. He would head straight for Sengoku's office to look into some extra shore leave. On the way, he also made a note to ask Suru for ideas on what to bring the kids to cheer them up. She did have a granddaughter herself. Meanwhile, in the East Blue, Luffy thanks Mayor Whoop Slap for letting him use the transponder snail and headed out of Fuchsia's town office. His older brother lifts his orange hat as Luffy walks out. So, did it work? Yep. Wow, I can't believe he fell for it. Ace laughed as they walked out of village. Good thinking, little bro. Luffy smiled at the compliment but he couldn't take the credit. It was all Nika's idea. How to phrase it so Garp would fill in the blanks wrong himself. The god had told him there were far more ways of lying than an outright fib. As they both headed back to the Curly Bandits' hideout, the 8-year-old boy was wrapping his head around it all. How Nika wasn't the only god influencing their world. How the world government was actually run by a dark being called Emu who hid behind the Marines and the 5 Elder Stars to manipulate everything. And how it was Luffy's job as Nika's avatar to destroy Emu and free the world from his control. Before he wondered how the heck he was supposed to do that. He could stretch his body just like Nika could and he did start thinking of ways to use it but that was it. His grandpa had been training him up but Luffy hated it, yelling at the old codger all the while. But not anymore. Not since Nika explained how Emu allowed the world nobles carte blanche to do whatever they wanted. They had been abusing their power, killing and enslaving not even Nika knew how many. Luffy stopped crying for his brother and felt a fire burning in his gut. He clamped a hand on the brim of his beloved straw hat. Luffy, this hat is my greatest treasure, Shanks told him before leaving the East Blue for good, and now it's yours. Give it back to me when you become a great pirate, okay? I'll do better than that, Luffy swore to himself. I'll be the best pirate ever. I'll be king of the pirates and then I'm gonna beat up Emu myself. He's not gonna hurt anyone ever again. A 10-year-old Luffy grunted in effort, pushing up again and again even with the trawler-sized boulder strapped to his back. His face was pouring sweat, his muscles burned but he wouldn't give up. Alright Luffy, just 50 more, Garp ordered, then we're gonna spar and see how those new gum-gum attacks of yours are coming along. Luffy just grunted. Garp had been running him into the ground harder and harder with each visit. Every time he thought he'd seen the worst of it, the old Marine kept raising the bar. Lifting heavier and heavier weights, more and more laps arrowing him against the many predators that stalked the jungles of Dawn Island. But now he never cried, never complained. It was all to get stronger. To achieve his dream. To one day fulfill his role for Nika. The god, when he wasn't toying with Luffy for his own amusement, had actually proven a steadfast partner. He encouraged his avatar, pushing him to train hard even when Garp was away but he also told Luffy the importance of making and keeping friends. No one person can do it all, Luffy, not even me, he said once, in a very rare moment of sincerity. You need to find not just allies, but comrades. People who will stand by your side no matter what. Be loyal and kind to the right people and they'll help you to the ends of the world. When Luffy wasn't training, he was palling around with Ace and having more adventures. He was helping Machino at the bar, easily able to lift a keg over his shoulder. He was just being friendly to the people of his village. He did still cause trouble and get an earful from Dayton, but he also helped protect the hideout from any other bandits that came looking for a score. But once Luffy was done his morning training at Eden by hunting down a tiger, naturally, Garp said he had something special to teach Luffy. Alright, kid, pay attention. What I'm about to teach you is something only taught to captains or higher. This is an ace in the hole that'll put you right at the top of the class. Luffy nodded, noting how serious Garp was. The old marine then reached into his pocket and took out a simple gray blindfold before wrapping it around his own eyes. What are you doing? Did I say you could speak up? Garp threw a punch right at Luffy's stomach, making the young boy wince. Hey, you didn't buckle. Not bad, he commended before walking a few paces away. Now then, try to hit me. Okay then, Luffy wound up his punch, stretching his arm back several feet before attacking. Garp leaned just out of the way. Huh? Come on, try again. Luffy did try again and again and again, but Garp just kept dodging. He didn't get it, the old man's eyes were completely covered and yet he barely had to move to dodge at all. Grr, how are you doing that? That is observation haki, Garp answered, revealing his eyes again. I told you this was advanced stuff. Now pay attention to this. Garp reached down and punched the ground, making a perfect indent of his fist in the soil. Luffy wondered what was so special about that, only to see his other hand turning black. Whoa, what's that? The Vice Admiral slammed the darkened fist right next to the first impact. His arm moved exactly the same speed as before, but this punch plowed straight into the ground, the earth under Luffy quaking. This is armament haki, the other technique you're gonna learn. Both of these come from your willpower. And as you can see, it'll give you a huge edge. Oh man, Nika gaped. Luffy, get cracking on those. You have no idea the cheat codes this geezer is handing you right now. Luffy liked the sound of that, even if he didn't understand yet. He nodded and soon Garp was detailing how he needed to concentrate his will either into his mind or his muscles. It didn't make much sense, but Garp assured him that if Luffy kept pushing himself harder and harder, he'd have them down in no time. Luffy and Ace stood apart from each other. The former had a blindfold over his eyes while the latter looked very confused. What the heck had Garp been teaching Luffy? You both ready? Yep, sure, go. Ace figured it was better not to question it, the young teen rushing to try and hit Luffy. The younger brother didn't even move. That is until a fist was inches away and Luffy suddenly ducked. What the, how'd you do that? Hee. Ace tried over and over to clobber his brother, but it wasn't any good. Luffy dodged, jumped and swerved around everything. Hey, you're cheating. I'm not, just to prove a point. Luffy caught Ace's latest kick and then answered with a right hook that left Ace sprawling. Come on, Ace, you're not fighting like you mean it. Are you gonna let a pipsqueak beat you? Alright, that's it. Now Ace was pissed. He pulled out his trusty pipe and made to whack Luffy upside the head. But it didn't help at all. The little tyke started showing off even more, doing flips and using his gum fruit to slingshot himself towards trees to give Ace the slip. Stop that. Okay, if you say so. Luffy whipped the blindfold off and charged right at Ace. The older brother ran up to meet him, prepping to give him a swing that would knock him senseless. Except when Ace brought the metal pole down, it collided with Luffy's arm, and it shattered into bits. Okay, what the fuck? Ha, I did it, Luffy cheered. I know how to use haki. Attaboy Luffy. Good job. Garp was even clapping in cheer even as Ace stormed up to him. You taught him to do that? Why didn't you teach me? Because you aren't gonna be a marine like Luffy is. If you do, however, I might just change my mind. Would I say? Screw that. Ace huffed off, but he and Luffy shared a look. The brothers had to fight not to laugh at how Garp still hadn't caught on. The older kid ran off into the forest to find some lunch while Garp approached Luffy. I've gotta hand it to you, Luffy, that was some fine work. I bet you'll be the youngest captain in history. Hey, thanks, Gramps, now, you're in a pretty good spot already. Boot, I do think you could still use an edge. What kind of edge? Consider this your secret weapon. Garp reached into his cloak and pulled out a black book bound shut with a metal clasp. Wow, what is this? This is something that we only hand to the cipher poles. Luffy, I mean it when I say you can't let anyone else get this book. Namely, because old Goatbreath would have my head for it. Okay, Gramps, I'll keep this book to myself. You better, if you thought haki was broken. This should be illegal. I can't believe he's just handing this to you, and I've seen all the shit. That night, Luffy stretched his reading muscles to the limits as he read up on the 6 powers. These moves sounded completely insane, but his face lit up in a smile. Wait until Luffy had an entire crew he could teach these to. Luffy stood tall as Garp glared at him. He knew this was coming, but he still had the tiniest knot in his stomach. That's better than most, given that the hero of the Marines was grinding his teeth and curling his infamous fists in anger. So, let me get this straight, he ground out, you aren't going to be a Marine? Nope, Luffy said plainly, unflinching even as Garp's glare heated up. His eyes never wavered underneath his treasured hat. Even though I've taken months out of my schedule to personally train you? Even though I've already enrolled you in the Naval Academy? Don't care. Even though I paid your tuition in full? In cash? I never asked you to do that. Well then I guess you owe me 30 million berries, you little shit. I can't believe you, I even threw you a birthday party. The cake was yummy, Luffy admitted, but he still wouldn't budge. This was the day. 13 was the age that recruits entered the Marineford Academy. After the fun last night, Garp ordered Luffy to pack his things and say goodbye to everyone in the village at the crack of dawn. When Luffy refused and made it clear he wasn't leaving, he'd been dragged to the same training spot they'd frequented to get beaten into submission. So what is it? What's so damn important that you're gonna throw away years of work for? Luffy lifted his eyes to stare Garp in the face. I'm gonna be king of the pirates. Like hell you are, Garp bellowed so loud the entire island heard him. Damn that red-haired Shanks. I can't believe you lied to me, your own family. I never lied to you, Luffy shrugged. I never said I wanted to be a Marine. Garp was about to bowl him over only for the gears in his head to start turning and promptly lock up. He never heard Luffy say that direct went off again. You still tricked me, damn it, and now you're gonna go to the academy whether you like it or not. No, oh yeah? Says who? Says me, it's my life and I'm gonna be a pirate. Garp stalked forward, his hands ready to punch Luffy into next week, but the straw-hatted teen remained still. He wasn't afraid of Garp anymore. Nika had made it clear there were far more dangerous foes. The admirals. The warlords. The emperors. All of these he'd have to conquer on his mission to defeat Emu. He wouldn't let something like Garp stop him. I suggest you rethink that right now. Luffy did just that, putting his head down for several moments before glaring back up. Nope, still want to be a pirate. Smart mouth. Garp threw a punch at him, but Luffy managed to tilt aside. He had been navigating the island with his observation alone. He saw that coming a mile away. Of course, that was far from Garp's best. He truly does care for you, the old bastard, Nika sighed. It's a shame he's so stubborn. He probably could have been Roger's best friend under different circumstances. That image brought a smile to Luffy, angering the Vice Admiral even more. Laugh at me, will ya? The left hook grazed by Luffy's face, again far too slow to connect. He might be holding back, but I wouldn't put money on you in a straight fight. You need to bargain, play against his pride. How about a deal? What, you say yes right now and I don't knock your head off? No, I'm gonna prove how strong I am. I bet I can knock you down. Garp laughed his head off, barely standing upright. Oh ho ho ho, that's a good one, like you could ever pull that off. If I could, I'd have to be really tough. Yeah, so what? If I could pull that off, I'm strong enough to think for myself. And if you can't, then I'll go with you. Garp stopped dead in his tracks. He couldn't be serious, could he? You mean that? Yep. No backing out? Never? Garp was mulling it over. Luffy could practically feel Nika struggling not to burst into laughter. He had the old man exactly where he needed. All he needed was one last push. What's the matter, Gramps? Scared I might win? The Marine growled. Alright, you know what? Let's try this little wager of yours. I'll give you 5 minutes to knock me down. And when you lose, I'll help you pack your things. Deal. Garp quickly stomped into the ground to create 2 perfect indents of his feet in the dirt. His position was set. Luffy quickly leapt backwards and widened his stance. Alright then, Squirt, he said while pulling out a pocket watch. 5 minutes starting, now. Luffy snapped his arm back, the rubber limb stretching for 100 feet before stopping. Gum gum, the arm snapped forward, rocketing forward like a whip with Luffy's knuckles aimed straight at his grandfather's face. Pistol. The blow rang true and slammed into Garp's nose. Marine only barely flinched. Hey, is that all you got? No way. Luffy stretched arms back now, pushing their length even further. Gum gum bazooka. His palms slammed into Garp's stomach, getting the tiniest oomph in response. Luffy growled, he barely felt that. 30 seconds gone already, Garp warned. You better try a lot harder than that. Grr, shave. Luffy seemed to disappear where he stood, much to Garp's approval. Well, at least he made good use of that book. Gum gum bullet. The young pirate appeared right beside Garp and launched a fist directly into his side, only just barely dodging the swing to counter him. Pretty fast, thanks, Luffy growled before hopping into the air and then again off of thin air. Huh, got moonwalked down too. Garp looked down. 4 minutes left. Luffy kicked one of his legs up and elongated the limb for hundreds of feet. Gum gum battle axe. The massive stomp crashed down on Garp's shoulder, actually making him wince this time. He looked over and saw why. Luffy's foot was coated in black armament haki. HMMPH, starting to get somewhere. Okay, that made him flinch. But you're not going to knock him over by striking from above. Right, Luffy nodded, tumbling back down to the ground. He turned to face Garp again, grateful that he only struck back once. He needed to overwhelm the old man with so much that he couldn't keep up. It was time to break out his favorite technique. He spread his feet apart, his arms at his side. He took a long, deep breath in between his nose. Gum, Garp could feel it, Luffy's focus. He knew this was going to be the big one. Gatling. Luffy's fists suddenly blurred through the air, his arms bouncing back and forth so fast like they truly were bullets. Garp now flinched in a twinge of pain as over a dozen blows slammed into him all at once. Okay, time to start blocking, he told himself, bending his knees so he could swerve and deflect as many punches as possible. But soon Luffy's blows started aiming for where he would be, not where he was. The punches got through his guard and he was actually starting to feel sore. That's it, use your observation, predict where he's vulnerable. Luffy's speed seemed to double as her poured more energy into the attack. Garp actually starting to sweat the tiniest bit. Damn, I might have trained him too well, he sighed, it's just like Dragon all over again. Need to be stronger, then use armament, you numbnuts. What, did you plan on saving that at the last minute? We're on a time limit here? Luffy complied, his fists shifting to black, and now Garp was actually starting to feel real pain. One punch would have felt like a rock between the eyes. Several hundred beating down on him all at once. He was starting to regret teaching him that technique. At least he hasn't used finger gun yet, you're almost there. Luffy, Nika shouted. You need to push your willpower to its limit, tap into your conqueror's haki. Huh? But I never used that yet. The night Garp first told him about haki, Nika let him in on the secret third variety only an extremely select few had. But no matter how hard Luffy trained, it never came up. Stop talking to yourself, brat, Garp ordered, right before one of his knees started to buckle. Luffy, listen to me. This is your dream on the line. Emu is still out there, pulling the world by the strings. Remember our mission, Luffy? Remember your promise to Shanks? Remember your brother? That did it. Something, like a burning fire in his gut, was stoked into a roaring inferno. Luffy screamed to the heavens as a wave of force was unleashed. The ground trembled, the morning breeze was shattered, and Garp actually gaped in terror when he felt it. And no, it can't be. Just like the Fleet Admiral, or no. That damned face entered his mind. Wild black hair, a long red coat, and a smile that made his blood pressure spike. Come on, Garp. You'll never catch me like that. R-O-O-G-E-R. Now, Luffy, take this. Luffy took the last of his strength and poured it on, the armor hardening to its maximum before his left hand crashed into Garp's face while the right collided with his gut. The proud Vice Admiral felt his would go black for a moment and almost lost his breakfast before he tumbled backwards. Like father, like son, he moaned, so damn close. Luffy collapsed on the ground, dripping sweat and his arms burning like they were shoved in a fireplace. Every breath felt like an accomplishment at this point, but soon he saw it. His grandfather, the illustrious Monkey D. Garp, hero of the Marines, with his butt on the grass and his feet clearly off the spots he marked. He began to laugh, little by little. His chest burned and he might have coughed up blood, but he didn't care. He did it. He won. He would never be a Marine. He'd be a pirate, the king of the pirates. Garp just left him to his laughing fit, passing by a smirking ace along the way back to the docks in Fuchsia village. Button up your shirts, you look like a damn hippie. No, Garp just grumbled about the kids these days. Old went to fetch his brother. He just earned himself a big old helping of meat for sticking it to the old man. And though Garp wanted to turn back and drag Luffy by the scruff of his neck, he stayed on course and walked up the gangplank to his battleship. Set sail now, he told the nearest seaman, we're leaving for headquarters. Sir? What? Well, is your grandson not coming with us? Forget about him. That's an order. The young private wisely went about relaying Garp's commands. While everyone was busy, he pulled out Luffy's signed application form to the Naval Academy. Guess it was a good idea to not turn this in, after all. He then accidentally let the papers catch on the sea breeze and flowed down into the water, rendering them useless. Garp then headed to his cabin for a nice, long drink. He'd toast to whatever Marine made the mistake of trying to apprehend Monkey D. Luffy. Chapter 2. Prelude to a Journey. The Real Power of the Avatar. The forests of Mount Corvo were infamous for their danger. Predators like tigers the size of boats to massive falcons stalked the greenery. Only the mountain bandits like the Dayton family dared call this place home for a reason. But there was one exception, a 17-year-old lad who was strolling through the trees without a care in the world. He was actually looking for some tigers, both because he needed lunch and because it was part of his daily regimen. Monkey D. Luffy was no longer the little boy who begged Shanks to join his crew. Now he was a determined young man looking to get as strong as possible before he set out on his own journey. Standing around 6'5", Luffy now had to look down at most of the islanders. His red vest showed off his muscular arms, made from hours of lifting boulders the size of houses. His blue jeans stopped at his knees and left his swollen calves exposed, better for his usual dozen laps around the coast every morning. The only things unchanged were the sandals on his feet, his messy black hair, the straw hat on his head and his beaming smile. "There you are," Luffy cheered as he came across a dozen tigers picking at the corpse of some animal. The giant cats seemed troubled for a moment before growling at each other, urging the pack to gang up on him. "Ha, when will these overgrown house cats get the lesson?" commented Nika, amused as always. "Hey, I'm not complaining," Luffy said back, rolling his shoulders as the predators circled around him. No matter how many of these guys he beat up and brought back to the Fuchsia village butcher, they always tried to attack him. But at least he meant he was never out of opportunities to get stronger. One of the tigers leapt at him from the back. Luffy didn't even look as he leapt to the side, his observation haki seeing it coming long before it happened. Another tried to claw his chest but he easily caught the limb and sent the beast flying with a kick. Two more tried to gang up on him, leaping so they could carve his stomach open. Luffy just stood there with a grin. Iron body. With practiced ease, his expansive muscles tightened until they were as hard as steel. The attacks bounced off of him, the tigers rolling into a heap and looking at him in confusion. They didn't get much of a chance before Luffy leapt into the air and grabbed onto the tree branches with his rubbery arms. As he treated the timbers like a jungle gym, his elastic legs swung out and bowled the cats over again and again while he didn't receive a scratch. The cats were beginning to nervous and inch back. "Ah, come on, you're not done yet." Luffy then swung one of his legs forward fast enough to be a blur. Tempest kick. A blade of air shot out and smashed into the rest of the pack, sending them tumbling on top of each other. Once they managed to untangle themselves, the animals all snarled in anger and rushed as one to rip Luffy to shreds. The soon-to-be pirate smiled even more, planting his feet on the ground before winding both his arms back. Gum Gum Bazooka. The arms shot forward, nailing 3 of the predators. 2 of them fell limply to the ground with broken ribs and a snapped neck, respectively, while a third was sent flying into multiple trees and thudded to the grassy floor, its spine a mangled mess. Shave. Luffy sped over to the fallen cats and gave each of them a finger gun straight between the eyes to end any suffering. With 3 of their pack dead, that made the 9 survivors incensed. They roared in bloodlust, and all rushed at Luffy for payback. Paper arts. In a complete opposite to his first trick, Luffy relaxed his muscles as much as possible. Now he could bend and weave around the bites, scratches, and lunges with ease. All the better to pair with his observation haki to keep track of so many foes at once, and frustrate the animals more. Finally, the pack had run out of steam and were panting for mercy. Luffy then proceeded to shave over to the nearest tree, rip the 40-foot tall timber out of the ground with a single yank and brandish it like a massive club. "Who's next?" he dared, the same smile on his face. The tigers finally got the hint and fled into the woods away from the dominant hunter. Luffy casually set the tree down and went to gather up his lunch. It was a 30-mile walk back to the village. To many people, hauling a trio of dead animals each weighing over half a ton through the same monster-infested forest was a grueling hike. For Luffy, it was just a cool-down to another day of prep. Nika pretended to weep like an emotional parent. "Look at you, so overpowered, you grow up so fast, I can't wait to see how many heads will roll." Luffy just grinned. "Thanks, Nika." Machino observed the small crowd in her bar, the men and women enjoying an early afternoon lunch from a long day of work. The barmaid kept eyeing the clock, though. It was almost 1:30. Time for her favorite customer of all to show up. Sure enough, the door opened to reveal Luffy waving hello with several dozen pounds of meat in his hands from his latest haul. The villagers all cheered at his arrival. Not only had the bandit gangs avoided the town like the plague for years, but the meat and fur he brought on were a major boon to the economy. Rumors were flying that even those in the Goa kingdom were willing to pay big bucks for some of the coats and stoles coming from the little town. "Hey there, Machino," he said, dropping the wrapped up cuts on the bar. "The usual, please." Coming up, she headed to the grill to prepare all of it, medium well and lightly seasoned like Luffy enjoyed it. And of course he would promise to pay it all back with his treasure tab he'd been keeping for years now, no matter how many times Machino insisted. He did most of the work, bringing his own cuts instead of eating into her inventory, but Luffy was stubborn in many ways. Once Luffy has scarfed down his few dozen servings of grilled wildcat, the bar is almost completely empty and figures it's been a while since he's helped out. When Ace left 3 years ago, it left a lot of time to fill. Afternoons usually meant more training until he dragged himself back to the Dayton Bandits' hideout. But today, he couldn't help but feel compelled to stay. Nika just chuckled. His avatar was currently staring as Machino reached under the back bar for a bottle, eyes locked on her plump behind stretching out her plaid skirt. "Like what you see, Luffy scoffed, eyes darting back to his plate before Machino could spot him. "Be quiet, Nika." Luffy, did you say something?" "No, I'm good." Oh, I doubt that, my hormonal little badass. That wasn't the first time you tried counting the squares on her dress. Luffy then excused himself to the bathroom. Once there, he closed his eyes and concentrated in order to visit Nika's realm. It wasn't often he had to consult the Chaos God anymore, but it was still useful when he didn't want to look completely nuts talking to himself. He found Nika in his usual white void, playing with a paddle ball. The god just stared at Luffy for a while, smiling as he smacked the ball back and forth so fast it was a pink blur. Go on, ask your question, I'm going for a personal record. What's the record? The paddle ball then burst into flames and poofed into ash. Nika just shrugged. So close. Almost 12 minutes without spontaneous combustion. Now, what's the problem? I'm supposed to be king of the pirates. I shouldn't waste my time going after girls, so why do you keep egging me on? Wahahahahaha. Oh, Luffy, you simpleton, it's natural that you should be attracted to pretty women. Even Garp had the sense to teach you that. Well, yeah, but I can't be with Machino. I don't want to leave her waiting for me. Who says you have to? Why not bring her with you? I can't do that, she can't fight, and I won't have her staying on the ship just to be my mate or something. Ah, you're the chivalrous kind of pervert. That consideration alone makes you better than Mu or Career. But Luffy, here's a question, what if Machino were stronger? Would you take her then? His silence spoke volumes. Well then, let me tell you about a really neat trick you can do. Luffy soon exited the stall and returned to the bar, Machino smiling at him. The pirate then offered to pay off his tab by helping out for the rest of the day, Machino happily accepting, as today had been a tiring one. It was far from the first time he had volunteered here, running food and drink while Machino prepared everything. After a plethora of hungry mouths to feed and throats to water, the sun was starting to set outside. Luffy checked the clock, 7:30 p.m. He couldn't believe 6 hours could fly so fast, but Machino clapped him on the shoulder. Thank you so much for all your help, Luffy. Without you, that party of 10 might have wiped me out. Hey, no problem. Do you want some help closing too? Oh, I couldn't, you probably had things to do. Luffy just shrugged, flipping the sign that closed and began stacking the stools on top of the tables as he was taught years ago. That was a lame excuse and Luffy knew it. And despite being ignored, Machino didn't seem upset as she went about wiping down the counter and putting away the stock for the night. He could feel his heart beat as he watched her, her body hunched over to reach the far edge of the bar. The peak of her cleavage as her blouse dipped lower, her cheery attitude that made him unable to focus on much else. She somehow looked exactly the same as the day he first wandered in here as a boy. Machino's eyes look away from the polished bar top and meet his. She perks up an eyebrow, a far cry from her usual patient smile. Luffy gapes inside. She isn't upset. Haha, I told you, she wants you so bad it hurts, now try and reciprocate. Luffy shakes his head in confusion. Nika has the unfortunate habit of forgetting that his host is still a bit wordily challenged. Oi, act interested in her. Oh, after a bit more cleaning up, Luffy passes another glance at her. Once again, their gazes meet. But this time he doesn't shy away. His eyes roam down to her backside as she's wiping down a stool. Instead of getting offended or shooing him off, she gives a slight shake and he watches her luscious cheeks jiggle underneath the fabric. His smile turns mischievous along with hers. That's it, keep at it, maybe show yourself off a little bit and see if she likes it. Their cleanup continued. Fuchsia Village thankfully turned into a ghost town at night so nobody would interrupt. Luffy grabbed all of the glasses and plates off the tables he hadn't touched yet, walking past Machino as she followed him. He caught her eyes following his behind as he moved, so Luffy went bolder. Once he was behind the bar and in front of the sink, he slowly undid the buttons of his vest. Luffy, yeah? He had to hide a smirk. She snapped to attention as soon as the first button came off. Do you want me to wash the dishes? It's really no trouble. No worries, Machino. You work hard enough. She tries to carry on with her job, but she keeps one eye peeled to Luffy's hunched back as he dunks each plate and stein in the sudsy water. All of it draws attention to the ridged sculpture of his muscles, the ones he spent so long cultivating through his training. Her face grows flushed as she takes in his body, catching glimpses of his chiseled arms whenever he reaches for the towel on his broad shoulder. God, how is he the same little kid? She asked herself for the umpteenth time. I wouldn't recognize him without the hat, and that smile that makes my day, and hot damn that body. She can't take it anymore. She needs to do something to relieve the heat racing through her. A quick glance down and she can see the beads of sweat running down her neck into her shirt. Well, if he can do it. Machino reaches down and starts to open up her top, undoing one button at a time. Luffy's hands shuffle around in the sink while his real focus is on her, watching her blouse slowly come off to reveal the white undershirt that does a much worse job hiding her bountiful breasts. Are you hot, Machino? You want me to open up a window? Ah, and no, Luffy, it's just hot is all, you know, it was just really humid today. Luffy just turns around, pretending he didn't just see her tits jiggle as she jumped in shock. As he actually wipes down some glasses, He notices Machino still placed her shirt on an upturned bar stool. Oh god, what's happening to me? She yells at herself, I'm not stupid teenager anymore. I started flirting with him. Why am I the one getting all nervous? I'm almost 30. Heck, is it even right for me to be with him? He's a decade younger than me. She watched as he turns to set some of the glasses on the drying rack, showing off his hardened abs and rigid pecs. She gulps, her face burning red. Except I don't want to be with him, like his wife. Of course not, he's got places to go. Being king of the pirates, he'll probably find some other girl, and… Hey, Machino? Her head darts up. Yes? Are you okay? You've been wiping that one spot for 5 minutes now. She wrestles with her own conscience, fighting whether to answer her feelings or let him go. He was a free spirit. He didn't need some maiden wanting to hold on to him, but she couldn't deny how the world seemed a little bit brighter with him around. Before she can do anything else, Luffy stands directly in front of her. His eyes look down in concern and she can't help but smile. Luffy, I'm sorry with the teasing and the shirt. I know you probably don't think of me that way, but I… She reaches up, still marveling at how the little boy who barely reached her hips was now the dashing man in front of her, and smiles with a touch of melancholy. I'll miss you when you leave. And I don't know when, so I guess I wanted to make your last nights here special. Now it's Luffy's turn to blush, ignoring Nika chanting about how he got yet another prediction right. Although how he got so good at romance was something he refused to discuss, while Machino reaches for her blouse. I'm sure that you'll meet some brave lady pirate or princess who'll just love when you sweep her off her feet, but I guess it can't be. Luffy suddenly wraps his arms around her shoulders, Machino marveling at the warmth radiating from his grasp and his eyes make her head spin. Machino, I'll never forget you. And the truth is, I've wanted you for a long time now. The people of Fuchsia village were quite surprised when Machino's bar was still closed at 10 in the morning. It wasn't like her to be late for anything. They all just assumed she was sick or was held up getting a new shipment of beet kegs. Mayor Whoop Slap made a note to stop by in a few hours to check on her. In reality, Machino was having the best sleep she could remember. Her naked body snuggled into the embrace of Luffy, a blanket over the top of them both. His arms cradled her waist and felt like the world's most natural heater. She never wanted to leave. She cracked open her eyes and saw his peaceful smiling face, his eyes open to meet hers. Good morning, Machino. Morning, handsome. Their lips met in a sweet kiss, heedless of the morning breath they might had. Then her eyes saw the clock hanging on the wall and all her good cheer vanished. The bar was supposed to be opened almost half an hour ago. Oh crap, she rushed to find her clothes, Luffy calmly following her outside once he was redressed and helping put down the chairs while his new lover rushed back to her house for a different shirt. He finished getting the tables ready himself, and when Machino came back, now wearing a yellow blouse with black sleeves, she could simply flip the front sign to open and take her place behind the bar. Thanks for the help, Luffy, it felt right. I'm the one who kept you. Several thirsty customers came in immediately, Luffy promising he'd be back tonight for her. He calmly walked outside before dashing out of the village and back to Mount Corvo as fast as possible. He still needed to get his training in for today after all. And first would be breakfast. Once he was approaching the forest, he noticed one of the many massive condors that often grabbed unsuspecting travelers. Well, that'll work. He jumped into the air, quickly getting the bird's attention. The brown feathered beast cawed and dived for him only for Luffy to smirk. Moonwalk. He kicked off the air itself, now over 100 feet. The bird gawked in surprise before an elastic kick broke its neck and its world went dark. Luffy landed nearby, the dozen-story fall not even fazing him. Now he'd carry this back to the Dayton Bandits' hideout for them to grill it up and to fill in a likely upset Curly over where he was last night. Machino's day was shockingly normal, at least to her. People came, ate, drank and caught up with each other and her. A few asked if she was unwell this morning and she simply nodded, many wishing her well and reiterating how much they appreciate her. It all felt so surreal to her. Luffy didn't show up for lunch today, though she figured it made sense. He had a training scheduled to keep up. She went through the motions until closing time when Luffy finally reappeared. He smiled that wonderful, carefree smile as she ran into his arms. But when they separated, he warned that he had something serious to ask her. If you could come with me, would you? Machino's brows scrunched up. You mean, to meet your family? He chuckled but shook his head. No, I mean on my journey. To be king of the pirates. Would you join me? Wah, Luffy, I can't be a pirate. I can't fight. But what if you could? That smile of his suddenly seemed like a tease, making her pout. This isn't funny, Luffy. I run a bar. How would that help you, unless you want me to be your personal? A firm hand caressed hers. Machino, I'd never ask you to do that. I wouldn't do that to anyone on my crew. But I am serious. If you could join my crew, would you? She could all but see her mind at war with itself. She wasn't a pirate. That'd be absurd. But, to be by his side, making sure he'd be safe as he traveled through the Grand Line, plus finally getting to see things beyond her little village. Yes, I would. A smile crossed his face that made her follow. Okay, then I've got a lot to tell you. Whatever you do, you can't repeat this to anyone that isn't on our crew, okay?" Machino nodded, trusting him implicitly, and she soon understood the secrecy as Luffy explained his role as the avatar of Nika. How the gum fruit was just a front. How he was out not just to be king of the pirates but to essentially topple the world government. Her head was spinning, it all sounded so crazy. But then came another question, even more insane than the last. What if I could give you a devil fruit power? Her eyes widened. Now that was impossible. Devil fruits grew wherever they wanted. Luffy only got his thanks to Shanks' crew bringing one back from the Grand Line. In the East Blue, they were all but unheard of. But seeing how unbelievable everything else sounded, and that Luffy was the worst liar in existence, she nodded. Luffy smiled even wider before explaining one of the many conversations he and this Nika had. A 10-year-old Luffy curled into his sleeping bag in the Dayton family hideout, his entire body sore after another long day of training with Garp. He was set to leave tomorrow, but the little boy knew that didn't mean he could rest. He needed to push himself harder, get as strong as possible so he could make those world noble bastards pay for taking Sabo away from him and Ace. He needed to learn this haki thing. Kid, as much as I love a classic crusade, you shouldn't get too carried away. The young boy was suddenly in Nika's little realm, the cloud-haired jokester lounging on a black recliner. Remember that you're still gonna find the One Piece. That means you'll tango with plenty of pirates and see a whole bunch of islands. And you know what they say. It's the journey that matters, not the destination. Luffy did smile at that. His hat was back on his head and he rubbed it fondly, remembering his promise to Shanks. Ever since he found Nika's devil fruit, he felt that same fire burning. It sure was lucky he found it. "Oh, you'd think that, wouldn't you?" Nika giggled. "Well, what if I told you that was no accident?" "Huh? What do you mean?" "You see, devil fruits are a specialty of mine. After all, I created them." "You did? How?" Nika simply reached into the folds of his billowing robes and pulled off a chunk of the cloudy white fabric. Luffy then watched the god stick the puff in his mouth before spitting out a tiny, bright purple candy that quickly expanded into a violet pomegranate covered in swirls. "And now, off you go." He chucked the fresh devil fruit into the air where it briefly glowed white before disappearing into nothing. Like the little kid he was. Luffy clapped in amazement at seeing real magic. "That was awesome. So what does that fruit do?" "I have no idea." "Huh? But you made it, isn't it yours?" "Wahahahaha, of course not. That fruit is off to find a person to tear things up. It could go to a bloodthirsty pirate, a noble marine, or a random alley cat that just wants a snack. The real trick to devil fruits is they have no set properties until someone eats them." Luffy now looked confused. He swore one of Shanks' crew mentioned they had a huge book full of devil fruits, but the god sat up with his hands on his chin. "You see, those fruits are my way of sticking it to Emu. They allow me to leak a little bit of chaos, the freedom he's trying so damned hard to erase, into his orderly world. What they do is they tap into the dreams, personalities, ambitions, the things that make people unique and graft an ability to match. Where'd the fun be if I dictated how people used them? That makes me no better than him. But Marines use them too. Oh, I'm more than aware of that. Those three admirals the nobles use as their lapdogs could most definitely use a kick between the legs, but that's life. The waves roll, the sun shines, and you end up making a psychopathic human superweapon or three. Hang on, if you can do that with devil fruits, then as my avatar, so can you." "No way." Machino cried, "Back in the present, you could do that?" Uh-huh. She could barely believe it, but since when did Luffy lie? And, she wouldn't deny, the thought of having a power would greatly ease her high seas. "Okay then, I'll do it." Luffy's smile could have lit up the entire island. "Alright, now, hold still." His other hand moves to her forehead. Machino watches as Luffy's eyes close, his body slumping like he's falling asleep. She wonders about him only for his head to snap up, his eyes glowing gold, and she can feel a jolt of energy snap through her. A second later, Luffy is back to normal and stands from the bed as Machino does the same. She holds out her hand and releases her new power. A deafening bang shakes the room. A blast of energy rockets out of her arm. Luffy following her hand and seeing dozens of tiny pellets now embedded in the opposite wall. It also sent her crashing to the floor with her hand smoking like it was an actual gun. "The burst fruit," she said aloud. She didn't know where the name came from, but it just appeared in her mind. "Wow, Machino, you get to be my first crewmate." She looked down at her hand, amazed that there was no bleeding or damage to her bones. She did feel immensely shaken, like she tried firing an actual shotgun with one arm, but it was true. She was no ordinary woman anymore. She was going to be a pirate. Machino lifted herself from the ground, a new energy buzzing through her. "Luffy, thank you. I promise I'll help you all the way to the One Piece." Luffy then rushed over and smothered her in a hug, amazed that his crew already had a member. He figured he would leave Dawn Island alone, but now he had someone to share the journey with. Said someone then ran her hands over his behind and let out a naughty chuckle. "So, Captain, how about we celebrate?" His own mind turned vulgar as he captured Machino's lips, before dashing outside to make sure the bar was closed so no one would walk in on them. Chapter 3. Bandits and Pirates Ahoy! The Straw Hat Pirates set sail. "You're really doing a great job," Machino, Luffy assured. "Running around the whole island is a lot for anyone." Thanks, Luffy," she wheezed, riding on Luffy's back as she tried to regain feeling in her legs. "Hey, sorry if I'm too tired too. Don't worry about that. I want you at your best for that anyway." He walked as fast as he could back to the village without disturbing the newly minted pirate too much. Once she announced her intentions to leave with Luffy, the people of Fuchsia mostly took it well. Sure, they would need to find a new barkeep, but that was worth it when Machino looked so happy whenever she was around Luffy. The only protest was from the mayor, who never went beyond loud griping. And now, a few days later, Machino was joining Luffy for as much training as possible before they departed for the Big Blue. First and foremost was giving Machino some basic fighting tips so she could throw a punch and block in a real fight. Since she had those down after about a day came physical conditioning. Lifting empty beer kegs, long sprints, and light spars with Luffy were all on the agenda. And as painful as the end of each day was, the results were quickly bearing fruit. In less than a week, Machino could now lift upwards of 100 pounds, increased her stamina enough to fight for several minutes, and managed to break a wooden board without flinching. Luffy proved to be the perfect teacher for her. He seemed to instinctually know when she was reaching her limit, and provided the right mix of encouraging and strict so Machino would honestly know when she needs to try harder and when she succeeded. Plus, while she couldn't learn any of Luffy's rubbery attacks, she could still develop her own power. With the burst fruit, Machino really was a walking shotgun capable of firing a short-range but very damaging spray of shrapnel in any given direction. The issue was that she experienced some serious kickback. She once managed to dislocate her shoulder firing too much out of her hand, much to the displeasure of the village's doctor. And yet every night, Luffy was there to carry her back to her home and kiss her goodnight with a smile. With each day she grew stronger and gained a deeper appreciation for her loving captain. Further inspiring her was a glimpse at the grueling work Luffy put himself through. Hauling over a dozen timbers slung on his back, after punching them down himself. Practicing his kicks and punches on boulders until they broke apart. Utilizing each of the 6 powers dozens of times in a few minutes. The fact that these activities led to Luffy stripping off his vest was a nice bonus for her. Machino and Luffy walked back to the village side by side, grateful for the pleasant weather. They had just finished hiking through Mount Corvo and the lady was blushing at the waves of praise from her captain. "Machino, you're a natural with observation haki. You picked it up way faster than me." "Oh, stop, my range is pretty small, not like yours. You can practically see everyone in the village." "Yeah, after years of practice. It took me a few months to actually start using it. You found it in, what, 2 weeks?" The houses and few businesses of their quaint little village came into view, only for Whoop Slap to run up to them. "Oh, there you two are, nothing happened to you?" "No, what's wrong, Mayor?" "Machino, it's your bar, those hooligans from the mountains, they." She was off running before he could finish, Luffy right behind. The fact that she just got finished with 5 hours of exhaustive training meant nothing to her. Machino sees that the front doors have been kicked in and gapes in horror. Tables were upturned, shattered glass scattered across the floor along with all the chairs. She immediately heads back to the storage room and notices several missing kegs along with the bag with all the bar's proceeds for the month. Already enraged, the greenette noticed a paper stuck to the far wall of the room with a dagger. Machino stomps over and soon her blood boils over. "Those fuckers," she growls, immediately storming outside. Luffy wisely stands out of her way, having sensed just how pissed she was. One of the first and best pieces of advice he received from Nika. "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned." Luffy jogged after Machino as she headed back out of Fuchsia and towards Mount Corvo. He kept a decent clip behind her to keep her in sight without losing her. She was so incensed that she barely paid an attacking tiger any mind, just casually kicking in the face. The cat looked more offended at being ignored and slumped off. In no time at all, she arrived in front of the Bear Club hideout just as the letter goaded her. And since turnabout was fair play, she raised a leg to smash the door in, much to the surprise of the several dozen bandits who were busy drinking and partying. Machino noticed the large burlap sack sitting on the central table of the room with a smirking stain of a man in front of it. Everything from his unwashed jacket and untucked shirt to his greasy black hair, hanging down to his ears along with a beard around his mouth, made it clear he was dirty and didn't care. And the smile on his face screamed of arrogance. It was only thanks to the cutlass attached to his hip nobody punched it off. Well. "Don't start that with me," Machino said. "You wanted me here? I'm here, so be good little boys and give me my money back." The rest of the bandits laughed at her bravado, all save the leader, who keeps the same vulpine grin. "Goodness, little lady, where are your manners? It's not every day you address a man of my stature." "Oh, cut the crap, Higuma. Just tell me what you want so we can get this over with." Seeing how she refused to be intimidated, The lead vagrant stood with one hand constantly resting on the handle of his blade. "You seem to be getting awful close to that kid in the straw hat. The one who's getting way too big for his britches." Machino raised an eyebrow. "Last I checked, that kid could kick all your asses in 5 seconds flat." Higuma snarled at that. He was clearly still sore about the time Luffy tossed them all out of Machino's place when he was only 10. And the time he caught them trying to rob the village's food suppliers when he was 12. Or the dozen of other times he sent them packing. That loser keeps going on and on about his dream. King of the Pirates this and One Piece, that. Like all that shit actually exists. You know what I see? A stupid kid who refuses to grow up. Just like that even bigger loser Shanks. Stupid little redhead got on his boat the second a real fighter showed up. Now Machino had to bite her tongue from laughing. Last she checked, Shanks was an emperor of the sea wanted for billions of berry. Real strength is knowing when to use it, not lording it over people because you can. Higuma pointed a foul-smelling finger in her face. That right there is the problem with that dumbass. Prattling all this crap and then acting like he owns the place because he got lucky. It makes me want to gut him like a fish. He then rested his other hand on the bag of stolen berries, his smile somehow becoming even more full of itself. "So, we decided to teach him a little lesson. That loser has nothing of value, so he went after his girl. And now you're gonna have to do whatever I say in order to get this back." He then strode forward and placed his hand on Machino's shoulder, making his intentions very clear. "I'll tell you what. Me, a little alone time with some wine. It'll be over really quick, would I say?" The slap across his face was enough, but Machino wasn't done, shoving him backwards to the floor. "I say you're a pathetic excuse of a man who knows Luffy could wipe you all out, but you're too weak to actually do anything, so you pick on someone else instead." She then walked forward, even as several swords and pistols were trained on her. "So, here's what I offer. I leave with my money and you all can keep playing, but crooks look from one to another before going into a laughing fit." One rotund gun strolled up, waving his pistol in the air. Now, come on, little girl, I doubt that." Machino suddenly lifted her right hand directly at him, gripping her arm at the elbow. HK hand. A wave of force blasted out of her hand and the bandit was sent tumbling down before screaming in pain. Dozens of small pellets were lodged in his chest, sending a wave of panic throughout the bear club. "What the fuck? How'd she do that? There's no way she can draw that fast." "No way, does she have a devil fruit? I told you this was a horrible idea, boss. Don't just stand there, you idiots, get her." 3 guys rushed at her from behind, but Machino's observation saw them coming. She wheeled around with a high kick that knocked the leftmost grunt against his buddies before sending a flurry of palm strikes that floored them all. She then swerved to the right to avoid a sword stabbing at her gut. "What the?" Without even looking, the bandit shouted before Machino pointed 2 fingers at his arm. "Derringer digits." Another smaller but much more concentrated blast shot the man's arm. He screamed in agony, dropping his blade as blood started gushing out of his pockmarked limb. "Shoot her from a distance," Higuma ordered, half a dozen men all cocking the firing hammers on their guns at once. Machino raised her hands, ready to try and defend herself. Gum pistol. An elastic fist tore through the hideout wall like paper, slamming into the firing squad and conking them all senseless. Machino smiled brighter than the sun as Luffy peered inside, flashing her a thumbs up. "See, Machino? You're awesome. You handle these guys. I'll go after their boss." Aye, Captain." Machino even flashed a salute with a giggle before several of the bandits came at her. Luffy turned as the sound of her shouting as many pained groans and thuds from hitting the wooden floor sounded, making him smile. He walked outside and expanded his observation haki to find where the boss had run off to. Sure enough, the cowardly Higuma was running through the trees away from the village with the money slung over his shoulder. He glanced behind him every few seconds, eyes popping in panic at how wrong this all was. He was Higuma the bear, the most feared bandit for miles. And here he was running away from some woman who was treating his entire crew like punching bags. He had to get away, he had to flee somewhere and use the money to start over. He had to find a way to start again when his face was on wanted posters all over the East Blue. He stopped dead in his tracks as a hand clamped down on his shoulders, then rapidly flung him backwards. Higuma looked back in terror to see Luffy reeling him in. Wait. Hold on, I'll give back the mon. Luffy's other fist smashed into his back, stopping the bandit's plea instantly. He crumpled to the ground while Luffy's sandal-clad foot rested on the back of Higuma's knee. "I heard everything you said. About how you want to kill me, how pathetic I am, how you mocked my dream, and I could have forgiven all of it." Higuma hoped he could somehow get out of this only for Luffy's other foot to rest on his already injured back. "But no, you went after Machino. Just to get to me. And if there's one thing I can't stand." The foot resting on the bandit's leg turned black before stomping down, shattering the bones in an instant. Higuma screamed his agony from the broken limb while Luffy glared daggers at him. "It's someone hurting my crew. And now you're gonna pay for it. And now, once the beer is poured, what do we do now?" Machino asked, placing a fresh pint on the bar. The 4 men sitting in front of her, looking much cleaner and less shabbily dressed than they were a few days ago, seemed lost until one raised his hand. Ooh, let it rest so the head can form properly? Correct. You've answered every question right, Garth. You're officially the new manager of Party's bar. The turban-clad man hollered and cheered, even more so when Machino pushed the beer towards him as a reward. The other 3 patted their friend on the back as they got up and headed to their new home at the edge of Fuchsia village. As they passed by the entrance, they passed a smiling Luffy and a nervous mayor. Luffy? Are you sure these men are truly reformed? Without you around, what will keep them in line? Don't worry, Mayor. Machino thought of that too. The mayor headed outside and gawked as none other than Curly Dayton herself and the entire bandit family walked into town wearing matching red sashes along their heads. You all can sleep easy from now on, Mayor. The Fuchsia village security squad is ready. Several of the grunts then raised their cutlasses and muskets in the air, rallying a cry that made many of the villagers scream in panic. I'm afraid we don't have any money. They've been paid in advance. 9 million bears ought to be more than enough to satisfy them until you all can work out something more formal. Machino walked next to Luffy, a pair of duffel bags slung over her shoulders. Her lover chuckled. He shoved everything he owned into an old beer keg. They both shook hands with the mayor, assuring that with Higuma locked up with the Marines, and seeing how Luffy turned the serial killer into mincemeat, they were more than happy to toe the line. It also taught them all a valuable lesson. Don't brag about your bounty to an unknown pirate who can still cash it in. The whole of Fuchsia village then watched as Luffy pushed their little rowboat off of the town port before hopping in himself. The townspeople waved them goodbye, even Dayton. Are you crying? Someone asked her. Of course not, she lied. That stupid brat was nothing but trouble, almost as bad as his brother. Love you too. Luffy shouted as they floated away, getting a laugh out of everyone. The merriment faded as Machino rested her head on Luffy's chest, content to bob along the waves until something broke through the water in front of them. A massive brown sea serpent with blood-red eyes the locals had been calling the Lord of the Coast. While Machino flinched back in fear, Luffy only casually looked up at the small sea king with disinterest. Oh yeah, totally forgot about you. The colossal eel snarled and opened its jaws to reveal rows of razor-sharp, cinder-block-sized teeth. Luffy simply looked up, his piercing gaze making the beast recoil. A wave of Conqueror's haki rang out as Luffy commanded, "Go away." The Lord of the Coast whimpered and swam away immediately, more than likely away from Dawn Island itself. Machino gawked at the one power Luffy had never shown her before. He just looked sheepish. Sorry, but I can't really teach you that, it's complicated. His lover rolled her eyes and placed a kiss on his cheek. Whatever, big shot. Just make sure your muscles never get bigger than your heart. Why would I ever do that? Their good time soon ended when they noticed that their boat had stopped, then quickly started going backwards. Is that a whirlpool? Machino shrieked as their little boat was indeed getting pulled in by a cyclone of water. Huh, and it was such a nice day. Luffy shrugged before prying the lid off of one of the ration barrels they stocked and jumping in. Machino emptied the only other one, stuffed her bags in and then herself. She was beyond grateful she bought the quality casks that were airtight, and hoped that they still were. Machino popped the top of her barrel, gasping for fresh air and relieved just to be alive. She looked around and saw they were clearly in a ship's galley although it looked deserted. The wooden floors were still clean and ingredients still littered the various tables, and then she heard several explosions and shouts coming from outside the door leading to the rest of the boat. Well, I knew we were going to run into other pirates but on our first day. She then spotted the other barrel still firmly shut. Luffy, are you okay? A loud snore answered her. Fee could sleep through getting sucked into a whirlpool. Machino lifted herself out of her impromptu boat and knocked on the side of Luffy's barrel. Rise and shine, Captain. We're still alive. Another snore. Machino sighed before another idea came. Luffy, if you don't hurry then Ace will take all the roast beef I'm making. The top of the barrel launched across the room as Luffy frantically looked around and pouted at Machino when it was clear there wasn't any meat. The two would have discussed more only to watch a young teen dart inside the kitchen and look behind him, muttering, okay, they shouldn't be able to find me in here. Hello? The boy shrieked in surprise, turning around to reveal his eyes almost popping out around his thick-rimmed purple glasses. Who the heck are you two? I'm Monkey D. Luffy, and this is Machino. What's got you so freaked out? The answer came as 3 burly men in bandanas with cutlasses on their hips entered. Hey, Koby, are you slacking off again? The young boy insisted he wasn't, that he was looking for supplies to bring back to the ship. Machino shared a look with her captain, her expression filled with pity. He must be a cabin boy for the pirates attacking this ship. Yeah, he seems like a real wuss, Luffy. Oi, what are you two whispering about? The biggest of the pirates demanded, sauntering over with his eyes on Machino. Hey, how'd you escape? I'd never take my eyes off a hottie like you. Oh brother, she groaned, we just got here, and I'm taken. Oh yeah? By who? By me. The pirate was about scoff only to turn and see a pair of pecs, then having to look up at the straw-hatted stranger's glowering face. And I was told then when a woman says no, it means no. The rejected buccaneer brought out his cutlass and brandished it in Luffy's face. You got some nerve talking to me like that, you piece of shit. Don't you know who we are? We're members of the Alvida pirates. The who? Luffy asked, scratching his head. I learned about a lot of big crews but Alvida isn't one of them. Now you wanna mock us? You better be ready to die. He swung his blade forward but Luffy simply caught it with his hand and a bit of armament haki, much to the other swashbuckler's horror. What the? Derringer digits. The pirate then fell to the ground, clutching his bleeding shoulder while Machino blew out the smoke on her fingers. The other two gawked in terror before Luffy rushed in and smashed them into the opposite wall. What? How? Who? Hey, is this a kitchen? Luffy glanced around excitedly, making Koby face fault while Machino just laughed. The young man opened the door to the pantry and started helping himself to a crate of apples while Machino knelt down to a baffled Koby. Trust us, we won't hurt you. Come tell us what's going on. Astonished to be shown more kindness by a total stranger than his own crew, Koby obliged and joined the duo in the storeroom. A bit of back and forth later and Luffy was laughing while Machino's pity grew, although she was a tad baffled. How did you confuse your fishing boat for one of this Alvida's rowboats? I don't know, they look the same, Koby yelled, and thanks to one mistake, I've spent 2 years of my life as Lady Alvida's slave. The only reason I'm even alive is because I can navigate. As Luffy swallowed yet another fruit, he tilted his head. Well, why not just leave? Are you crazy? Koby shouted. Lady Alvida is a monster. She can smack a person into the sky with her club. She threatens to pound me flat unless I do everything she says. That does sound miserable, Machino worried, to think a person could just use someone else like a tool. Yeah, I hate pirates like that, her lover griped. She sounds like a total faker. Huh? Fake? How is she fake? A real pirate doesn't need to bully someone to prove they're strong. I only fight people who give me a reason to. Koby blinked in shock. Wait, you're a pirate too? Yep, it's just me and Machino now, but I want to have a huge crew someday. Why? What are you after? Luffy's grin stretched from ear to ear. I'm gonna be king of the pirates. The boy's jaw almost hit the floor. He whipped over to Machino who just rested a hand on Luffy's shoulder, as supportive as ever. Are you both insane? Do you have any idea what being Pirate King means? You'd have to find the One Piece? Yeah, that's where we'll be going. That's totally impossible. Every pirate in the world is after that treasure. There's no way anyone can do it. No one, no way, not. Koby was shut up by a fist bashing him down to the floor. He moaned in pain as he slowly rose up, sobbing at Luffy. Why'd you hit me? Because you gave me a reason. Don't ever mock someone else's dream, Luffy warned, the mirth in his eyes gone. Koby flinched in shock and apologized and soon the straggler was back to chomping on apples with a grin. Machino took over, helping Koby up. Yes, we know we have a long and dangerous journey ahead. It'll take us years, most likely. But I believe if anyone can claim that treasure, it's Luffy and I'll be by his side to help him. Koby couldn't believe it. They were both completely serious. He looked down at his own hands, still sore from scrubbing Alvida's ship and wanted to shout. He felt like a total loser. Hey, don't beat yourself up, Machino told him, bringing her hand to his chin. You shouldn't give up on your dream either. Really? Yeah. If you truly want something, you go after it no matter what. But what if I die? Then you still chased it to the end. If I die, that's the only way it should be. Koby couldn't believe the smile Luffy was giving him, only minutes after being ticked off. It made the young man sniffle in appreciation, the first real positivity he'd seen in years. You know what, you're both right, I'm not going to give up. That's the spirit. I'm gonna get off of Alvida's ship and do what I've always wanted to do. And what's that? I'm gonna join the Marines, Koby shouted, motivated for the first time in ages. I'm gonna catch all the worst pirates, including Alvida. The cheer died when the ceiling to the galley suddenly caved in, a massive shape tumbling right between Koby and his new friends. The cabin boy squeaked in terror as the dust cleared and revealed a colossally obese woman, her bloated form stuffed into a bright pink shirt under a blue captain's coat. A white cowboy hat with a bright red plume adorned her long black hair, her matching white pants clearly straining. Clutched in her hand was a black iron mace, studded with spikes on the end. I'm sorry, Koby, would you care to repeat that? She said with a sly politeness. What was that about escaping to become a Marine? Lady Alvida, as I thought, as pathetic as always, the captain smirked, swinging around to face the other two. But you two, which one of you roughed up my men? Machino took one and I got the other two, Luffy offered, Machino glaring up the rotund woman with her arms crossed. They were jerks. The mace-wielding maverick raised an eyebrow at the blunt honesty. Is that so? Well, I suppose then an apology is in order. Luffy followed the metal club as it was leveled between his eyes. Either get on the ground and beg for forgiveness or I'll flatten you both where you stand. Wait. Lady Alvida, you don't, Koby, she barked, shutting him up in a second. Who is the most beautiful woman in the seas? Why that's you, of course. No, it's not. The air in the galley seemed to freeze as Alvida's entire crew gaped at Luffy. The captain herself was gritting her teeth hard enough to bite through stone. What did you just say? That you're not the prettiest anything, you're a real hag. Now the crew were tripping over themselves in shock. Who the hell was this guy? Insulting Alvida's beauty led many of their own comrades being pounded into paste or batted into the ocean. So, now you've attacked my crew, interrupted my raid, disrespected me, and now you Alvida roared, you must have a death wish. Wait, Luffy, stop. Koby ran in, getting between his new friend and his tormentor. You got it all wrong. I do? Yes, Lady Alvida is. The reluctant pirate felt his mouth lock up. He just said those same words a few minutes ago when they got here. Lady Alvida is the most beautiful woman on the seas. It was practically an hourly chore for him to placate her ego so she didn't kill him, and yet now. I believe if anyone can claim the One Piece, it's Luffy. If you really want something, you go after it. She is the ugliest skank who ever lived. He exploded, letting out all of the abuse and cruelty he'd been given by Alvida and her crew in one yell loud enough to be heard across the sea. Luffy burst into laughter. Machino had to hide her smile behind her hands and all of Alvida's crew were trembling at the rage rolling off their rotund captain. Why you little, Alvida growled before raising her club, that's it, you're dead. Koby, for once, didn't run away even as the mace he saw in his nightmares rushed towards him. He did scream in terror but he remained planted, swearing that he stood for his dream and could finally hold some pride in himself. Luffy was in front of him in an instant, blocking the club with his bare hand. The taller man looked back on him with genuine respect in his eyes. With guts like that, you'll be a marine in no time. What? Alvida screamed in horror. How? No one survives an attack from my mace. Then I guess I'm no one. Luffy swung his arm back and forced Alvida away, making her and the entire crew balk. Just who the hell was this guy? While all of the commotion was going on, the Miss Love Duck was anchored next to the cruise ship. The garish pink ship was left mostly abandoned, making a certain thief very happy. Dressed in a striped top and an orange skirt, a young red-headed woman happily loaded the contents of the ship's treasure room into a burlap sack and hauled it all over her shoulder with a grin. Another great day at work, Nami, she chuckled to herself. Just imagine that blubberball's face when she gets back and sees that someone pirated a pirate. Yes, Nami took as much pride in her line of work as possible. Robbing those who made a living robbing others was a nice dose of karma for them and got her closer to her goal at the same time. She was almost skipping as she brought her well-earned loot to a rowboat so she could escape only to notice a gaping hole in the cruise ship's deck. She sighed, giving a brief prayer that no one on board was dead when a commotion hit her ears. A loud metallic clang, several people gasping, and then a holler of joy. Catch me if you can, a voice announced before leaping out of the broken woodwork. Nami watched as a well-muscled man in a red vest, blue jeans and a straw hat leapt into the air before skidding across the deck. Dozens of men brandishing swords and fists chased after him, angrily baying for his blood. Is this guy insane? Nami balked. He had an entire pirate crew on his tail and yet this all seemed to be a game for him. She knew she should escape but she couldn't move. She just had to see what this nutjob was doing. The cat and mouse game continued for a while, Nami spotting a young teen with pink hair poking his head out to watch. The suicidal man in red then hooked his arm on one of the masts to make a hairpin turn. Except then his arm kept extending like a rubber band while his body ran forward. What the? She gawped, much like the rest of the pirates. The man then turned, his face a confident smile. Got you now. The pirates shouted in alarm and bolted in the other direction but it was too late. The superhuman tensed his arm. Gum rocket. He shot forward like a bullet, barreling down the entire crew of 40+ men in one shot. Nami's hands slacked, enough for her treasure to thud to the deck. She even pinched her arm to make sure this wasn't some insane dream. What the fuck is this guy? The madness continued as Alvida herself jumped out of the hole, a smug grin on her pudgy face. Hold it right there. She then raised her club to the face of a woman with dark green hair caught in her other arm. I suggest you stop right now or else your little girlfriend gets it. The man did pause, sharing a glance with the captive woman. Nami then blinked when she saw her looking bored. If that were her, she'd be sweating bullets. Hey, Machino. You alright? He asked her. Yeah, as much as I can be. And who the hell is this woman? A pirate is holding you hostage. Dumbass, wake up. Nami wanted to shout but she had to hear what these two were saying. Just who exactly are you? Alvida dared. You don't strike me as bounty hunters. Nope, we're pirates. Just set out today. Alvida laughed in surprise. Oh, pirates, are you? Just the two of you? For now. Hey, well, let me give you both a lesson. When you meet a pirate of my stature, there's a protocol you're supposed to follow. Like what? You stay out of my way if you value your lives. You hand over any valuables and then be grateful you're still breathing. Wow, you're ugly and a bitch, Luffy scoffed, making the whole crew freeze up again. Nami gulped at the sheer murderous look in Alvida's eyes. Mocking me again? Don't you see I have your girlfriend hostage here? I could kill her in an instant? No, you can't. The girl, Machino, planted her hand on Alvida's barrel of a stomach and her bored face turned into a glare. Now put me down before you get hurt. You, hurt me? How dense are you, you, Patterson Palm? A resounding boom rocked the deck as Machino's hand exploded back, revealing a gaping wound on Alvida's stomach. The pirate howled in agony as blood rushed out of her, dropping her captive like a rock and even her famed mace as she desperately wrapped her coat around the wound to stem the blood flow. Nami stumbled onto the railing, her mind refusing to believe what she just saw. Some random woman just blew a hole in the Alvida's stomach with just her hand? These two can't be human, she whispered, now wondering who she should be more afraid of. She watched as Machino stood up and walked towards the man, planting a kiss on his cheek. Sorry if I stole your thunder, Luffy, no worries, you did great. Grr, Alvida wasn't done yet, shakily getting to her feet and grabbing her mace again. She screamed like a woman possessed as she charged ahead to smash them both. Nami wanted to close her eyes to miss the inevitable bloodbath, but she just had to keep watching. And she wasn't disappointed. This Luffy threw an uppercut and cracked the iron mace, the weapon exploding into shrapnel from the force of his attack. Alvida looked at the now useless metal handle in her grasp, then back at the smiling young man. Nami almost had to laugh. She looked ready to faint. What are you? I'm Monkey D. Luffy, and I'm gonna be king of the pirates. Luffy then threw his arm back, his bizarre power working again as his limb extended far past the aft decks of both boats. Gum, he whipped his arm forward, the distant fist racing forward to strike Alvida in the same spot where Machino shot her earlier. Pistol. Alvida screamed in pain and peril as she was lifted off her feet by his rubbery fist, carried along into the sky before she was hurtling far into the horizon. Only a twinkle of light showed where she was, the rest of the pirates and the pink-haired bystanders staring in amazement at what just happened. Luffy's fist snapped back into place, Machino placing an arm around his waist. Very nice, Captain. I'd say that makes our first day a success. I'm not sure, she seemed really weak. Weak? Who the fuck are you? Nami screamed, pulling at her hair as she tried not to hyperventilate. I'm Luffy, he said plainly. Who are you? Do you have any idea who that was? Iron Mace, Alvida. She's wanted for 5 million bears. She was, didn't look like it. How do you not know that? Aren't pirate? And what kind of pirate just beats up another pirate for no reason? I had a reason. Oh yeah? Like what? She tried to hurt Koby. Who's Koby? I am. The bespectacled boy finally spoke up, but Luffy, that was amazing. Hey, it was nothing. Now come on, let's get you out of here. He turned to face the downed crew, serious in an instant. Koby's officially leaving your crew. Any problems with that? The whole crowd assured them that there was no issue, that they were deeply sorry for ever keeping Koby, and that they were free to leave and hopefully never come back. Koby happily followed his new friends as they jumped in one of the cruiser's lifeboats. Nami just stood there like a dead fish, processing everything she just saw. One of the most dangerous pirates this side of the East Blue was beaten in a minute. These two had some kind of supernatural power. And they were pirates that weren't total scumbags? The rational part of her brain finally kicked in. She could absolutely use people like this. If nothing else, they could help her bring in a serious payday. She hopped into one of Galleon's lifeboats with her sack of treasure and rowed after this Monkey D. Luffy. She doubted a goofball like him could ever make it to the Grand Line, but what was the harm in seeing what else he could do? Chapter 4. The Long Arm of Luffy, Thief Nami and Swordfighter Kuina. Luffy was happily lounging against their little ship's mast, his favorite hat shading his eyes. Koby sat in front, trying to read which way the wind was blowing. Machino was taking stock of the supplies in the hold below deck, knowing full well that Luffy had an appetite and a half. She's still back there? Luffy asked. Yep, Machino answered. Would you prefer beef or chicken jerky? Beef, please. Who's still back there? That girl from the other ship. Koby turned around, shocked to indeed see the redhead was furiously paddling behind them. How'd you both do that? You didn't even look. Hey, finally, caught you, Nami panted, clearly exhausted. They had long since left Alvida's ship and cruise liner behind. Oh, hey, sorry, didn't want any Marines to catch us, Luffy explained. So, what do you want? Let me just get something straight. You're a pirate, right? Yep, but you don't rob people, not unless they take something from me. Pillage towns? No, what's the point? Kill innocent people? No way. That's just sick. Nami just frowned, looking completely lost. Then what do you do? We have adventures. He's right, Machino agreed. You see, we wish to be a peace-main crew of pirates who don't cause trouble. We only fight if someone has wronged us in some way. Peace-main pirates? That's a thing? Since when? I don't know where the term started, but there have been several crews who follow a similar motto. The thief craned her eyebrow in doubt. Oh, name one. Red-haired Shanks. Bull. He's one of the 4 emperors, one of the worst pirates out there. No, he's not, he's awesome, he gave me this hat. Nami immediately paled. You've actually met him? And survived? Machino just laughed. Yes, I know he has an extremely high bounty, somewhere in the billions. 4,048,900,000. She recited from memory. How could anyone with a bounty like that not be a walking disaster? Because he doesn't go around threatening people for no reason, Luffy shrugged, he does it protect his friends. Okay then, I guess the fact that you're still alive, and even have his hat, is proof enough. Nami pulled out a rope and began tying their boats together, Koby assisting her as the duo of pirates didn't protest. So, since you were all nice, not jackass pirates, I was wondering if you'd be open to a deal. Yeah? What kind of deal? Simple. We become partners, splitting the loot 60-40 as we tear up other pirates. Or, even better, you beat them up and I cash in their bounties and give you a cut of the… Sorry, not interested, Luffy cut her off. Ah, come on, if you can beat Alvida that easily, just imagine the payday you'd get if you turned her in. We'll get treasure and stuff. Nami pouted at seeing her opportunity slip away only for Machino to speak up. Listen, we understand there is a lot of money to be made, but that's not necessarily what we're after. Pirates who turn down money. So Luffy, Koby asked as Nami's brain shut off, you don't mind us going to the marine base in Shellstown? Nah, I'm good. Besides, I can't navigate anyway. Oh, this just keeps getting better and better, Luffy sighed and lifted his hat to see Nami's thoroughly baffled face and had to stifle a laugh. Can you navigate? I can do more than that. I'm the best navigator in the East Blue. Really? Yep. Then how about you join my crew and you can get treasure that way? No way. Machino chuckled as Luffy essentially turned into a child, pleading for Nami to reconsider while the woman crossed her arms and sat facing the other way in her boat. And with each offer, the redhead rebuffed and went on about how she would rather die than ever be a pirate. Anyway, what can you tell us about this base, Koby? Oh, well it's one of the largest in the East Blue, and they just caught one of the most fearsome bounty hunters in the sea. Bounty hunter? Luffy asked, his interest piqued. Yeah, the pirate huntress, I get shivers just thinking about her. Wait, you mean Kuina? That pirate huntress? Nami gaped, but wait, she isn't a criminal. She might as well be. Koby then went on and on about how terrifying this woman apparently was, yet never actually stated what crime she committed. Machino turned to Luffy and noticed his grin as he resumed resting his eyes. She just sighed, already predicting how her captain was eager to meet her. Before long, the pair of small boats was approaching an island dominated by the blue spires of the marine base. Nami docked her boat right next to Luffy's crew and soon all 4 were strolling the streets, Luffy eagerly buying some food from the market with the pocket money they brought along. Nami shook her head, turning to Machino. Didn't we just eat lunch an hour ago? And he ate more than the rest of us? Oh, he just has an appetite, he burns through it all with his training. I guess that makes sense. She waltzed up next to Luffy, surprised to see him actually buying food instead of looting. So, Luffy, what's exactly your plan here? I want to check out that pirate hunter. What's her name again? That's a terrible idea, Koby insisted. Kuina never failed to turn in a bounty, and the only reason she kept them alive was so the government didn't cut their price. Thank goodness Captain Morgan caught her. The people around the 4 suddenly yelped in the air, terrified out of their minds. Koby looked completely lost while the others quickly got suspicious. Luffy trudged up past the houses until they came across a wrought iron gate, the symbol of the Marines emblazoned on the bars. The rest of the yard was hidden by a brick wall 10 feet high. While Koby looked at the base in glee, Machino noticed that Nami was scratching her chin. Got an idea? Yeah, I've heard about that Captain Morgan. He's supposed to be one of the strongest Marines around here. And that means he's bound to have some treasure, right? Machino got a chuckle as Nami whipped around. You know, Luffy might be willing to help you. Why? Because he already considers you a friend. Isn't that right, Luffy? Both girls looked around but the buccaneer was gone. They spotted him leaping on top of the wall to the yard, Koby yelling that he needed to get down. Luffy didn't hear him, too busy observing the woman tied to the post. Standing only a few inches shorter than him, the pirate huntress Kuina was the image of fearsome even with her arms bound to the bar of a cross and her ankles tied to a wooden stake. Her plain black tee and blue jeans belied a well-toned physique. Her dark blue hair was tied into a ponytail to stay out of her way while fighting. A dark green band was wrapped around her left arm. But most telling was her glare, unflinching even as sweat dripped down her brow. Who the heck are you supposed to be? She demanded. There's no visiting hours, so beat it. You're a bounty hunter, huh? Why do you care? Scram before somebody shoots you. Luffy, are you insane? What if the Marines see you, or worse, Kuina will escape and go after you, Koby warned, having shuffled up beneath him. Machino and Nami then climbed on either side, curious at what all the fuss was about. Kuina bared her teeth, infuriated. This isn't some kind of show, all of you better beat it right now or else he'll be sorry. She seems charming. Nami rolled her eyes only for Machino to lift herself up a little more. Hello there, sorry to intrude, but we've heard great things about you. Take your shit and sell it somewhere else, lady, I'm not buying it. Right before Koby could warn them all yet again, the 4 bystanders watched as a ladder was leaned up against the wall. A young brunette girl, no older than 7, climbed up with something hidden under one arm. She even shushed them all as she hopped into the yard. Ah, Luffy, you have to save her. Why, Kuina isn't gonna hurt her. Koby wanted to call him insane. Little girl offered Kuina some homemade onigiri. Even as Kuina yells at her to leave, the youngling is insistent on thanking her for something. Machino and Nami were starting to wonder if she got arrested for something minor like disturbing the peace when the answer strutted in. Flanked by 2 uniformed sailors was a blonde-haired man who was the epitome of smug. From his hideous violet leisure suit to the ear-to-ear smirk on his face under a blonde bowl cut, to the strut that made it clear he owned the place. Luffy frowned the minute he saw him. He didn't need observation haki to sense how pompous this guy is. Well, what do we have here? The new arrival sneered at the girl. Ooh, rice balls. Don't mind if I do. Koby gawked in horror as this guy caustically ate the girl's food, then spat it out in disgust. Apparently this girl decided to make sweet onigiri. Wow, what a, Machino muttered. But I don't get it, he's with the Marines. How could he act like this? Nami just looked at him in pity. Kid, you need to stop seeing things in black and white. Luffy's glare worsened as this guy ordered one of the Marines to chuck her over the wall. He could at least sense the seaman hesitate, but he still threw the brunette out like a sack of trash. Luffy leapt backwards to keep her safe. You alright? He asked her. Why yes, thank you. Koby, come on. I want to make sure this girl gets home. Nami turned in surprise and watched as Luffy put the girl back on her feet and escorted her back to town with the former cabin boy following behind. She actually felt the littlest bit impressed. A pirate who looks after little kids, now I've seen it all. Hey, jackass. Nami whipped around to see Machino practically blowing smoke, pulling herself up on the wall to glare down at the blonde bastard. What the hell is the matter with you? You don't treat children that way. The man laughed, finding her outburst hilarious. Sorry you had to see that, honey, it's just official business. The sign clearly says that anyone abetting criminals will receive the same treatment. I actually did her a favor. Why you little, Machino was about to march over and blast his face off when Nami grabbed her ankle. What? Don't do anything rash. We can use this. The redhead then pulled herself up, dusting off her skirt before posing with her arms behind her waist. I'm really sorry about my friend, mister. We just got here and wanted to see the base up close. Oh please, Kuina rolled her eyes but the big shot fell for the line. Then you've come to the right place. I'm Helmeppo, son of the great Captain Morgan. Nami had to resist laughing. Really? Then would you mind showing the 2 of us around? Helmeppo ordered his escorts to open the front gate for them, Machino just shooting the thief a look. Really? Just trust me. Nami smiled back, being helped down and then led inside with a much more reluctant pirate behind her. Back in town, Luffy and Koby found out the girl was named Rika and the daughter of a local restaurateur. And poor Koby was holding his head in his hands at being told that the callous jackass who abused a child was the son of the captain who ran the base. Luffy just leaned back against the eatery's outside wall. So, what did Kuina do? Nothing, she protected me from a wolf Helmeppo called his pet, so, he locked her up for a month before letting her go. That's why I wanted to bring her some food because that jerk is starving her. I can't believe this, why isn't the captain doing anything about it? Koby moaned. Because Morgan is even worse, anyone who stands up to him gets thrown in jail. Man, what a jerk, Luffy sighed before he noticing Helmeppo walking up the streets with his arms around Machino and Nami. Oh, you don't need to do this, Nami insisted, chuckling nervously. I'm sure the base has a nice mess hall we could have gone to. Nonsense. Lovely ladies like yourselves deserve only the best, and don't worry about money. When you're with me, everything here is free. Machino could only barely keep her face in a scowl, her hands clenched into fists as she shot glares at the marine officers leading them around. The only reason she was going along with this was because Helmeppo kept his hands to her shoulders. She was about to snap that her eyes were above where he kept looking. As the blonde strode into the eatery, Luffy felt his blood boil. Not just at seeing how uncomfortable both women were, but the sheer arrogance. He watched as Helmeppo sat them down in the middle of the dining room and ordered Rika's mom to feed them and pour her finest wine. Nami's smile was clearly strained, her eyes darting at the glares everyone was shooting her. When she mentioned how hungry she was, she figured that would be her ticket into the base. Now here she was farther from the goods and stuck with a total prick while the whole town wanted her dead. Her only solace was seeing Machino half ready to vomit from this guy's sheer sleaze. The greenette also didn't tolerate his schmoozing, nursing her full glass with a glare. So, what's going to happen to that woman you have tied up? Oh, her? Well, she's supposed to be let go in about a week but it's so boring. No begging, no pleading, nothing, she's a total waste of time. So, you'll let her go early, right? No harm in that? Nami asked only for Helmeppo to laugh. Oh, I know, I'll have her executed. The look on her face, ah ha 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 ha. Luffy was behind him in an instant thanks to Shave. His guards chucked into opposite sides of the dining room. Helmeppo could barely blink before he was flung out the front door like a bag of trash. The whole restaurant was dead silent in shock. Ah, thank goodness. Machino sighed in relief. I was wondering when you'd come to shut him up. I didn't even see him move, Nami gawked. What can't this guy do? What's the matter with you? Helmeppo screamed. You know who I am, right? My daddy's the captain. He'll kill you for even touching me. Oh yeah? Then go get him. Luffy just crossed his arms, waiting for the blonde brat to back up his threat. Seeing someone not instantly intimidated by him, Helmeppo turned tail and cried all the way up the street, much to the bafflement of the townspeople save for Rika. The little girl was seeing stars at the town bully finally getting served. Sir? The mother asked. I appreciate the help, but… Don't worry about this, Captain. I'll take care of him. The bystanders muttered in disbelief at how calm this man was, much less when both of the women Helmeppo brought and walked alongside him. Machino held his hand, ready to assist her captain with his latest goal. She was a bit more confused as Nami went with them. Going to look for that treasure? Well, if you two happen to make enough of a racket, it means an opening for me. So that's what you're after? Luffy wondered. Yep, any high-ranking marine is bound to have some contraband or recovered treasure lying around. All I need is find this captain's office. You know, I could help you find it, really? Yep, if you join my crew. Nami's brow furrowed, seriously weighing the idea. She had to admit this guy was a cut above other pirates in power and leaps and bounds ahead in personality. But being branded a criminal was no small matter. It was one thing to rob other pirates, but to actively fight the navy? I'll consider it, she said plainly, getting Luffy to burst into giggles. Nami rolled her eyes, but she had a slight smile of her own. Hey, what about Koby? Machino wondered. Leave him. Probably shouldn't let Marines see him helping pirates. And so the trio headed back to the front gate of the base. Luffy instructed Nami to hold onto his back as he picked Machino up in a bridal carry and leapt over the wall, landing clean on the other side in front of a baffled Kuina. What are you guys doing back here? Get out. I only had to stay here another week before. You get executed tomorrow? Finished Luffy, shutting the bounty hunter up. Negated the story, leaving the brunette fuming and struggling against the ropes. That little grr, when I get out of here, I'm gonna skewer him like the pig he is. Get in line, Machino nodded. So, you ready to get out of here? Yeah, except that douchebag stole my sword when I get tied up here. We can get it for you, Luffy offered with a smile, if you join my crew. You asshole, like I'd ever want to be a pirate. You better hope I don't cut you down too. Nami nodded along but raised her hands in placation. Look, I'm not that keen on the idea either, but you could do a lot worse than this guy. He's actually pretty decent, for a pirate, anyway. Kuina desperately wanted to chase them off, but having her arms bound to a cross limited her options. If you can get my sword back, I'll maybe work with you. Sure thing. It's in the base, right? Machino, untie her. The greenette nodded as Luffy grabbed Nami's arm before running ahead. Come on, let's find that loot, too. Wait, we're going in through the front door? Yeah, but don't worry. Most of the sailors are on the roof for some reason. How do you know that? Nami felt alarm bells ringing in her head as she was pulled inside. She expected to be bombarded instantly, but it looks like Luffy was right. The halls were practically deserted. It took going up several levels to encounter any resistance at all. And when they did, it was two grunts so surprised by Luffy that they barely got to draw their guns. Tempest kick, before Nami's jaw dropped again as she witnessed one of the 6 powers, Luffy's leg causing a shockwave of air so powerful it bowled the guards over and left gouges in the stone walls. What just how did what are? Luffy didn't bother answering, bounding down the hallway with Nami desperately pushing to keep up. And as she kept following, this grinning doofus of a badass just kept stupefying her. Every single soldier that was unlucky enough to cross his path was defeated in a matter of seconds. Some of the most memorable of these to her were on floor 6 when 4 grunts tried mounted assaults with their bayonets. Iron body. Nami slapped herself to make sure she wasn't imagining things as the blades just bounced off Luffy's chest and her conked them out in short order. Then came floor 8 where a particularly brave guard tried firing at the pirate with his pistol. Paper arts. While Nami ducked, she was baffled again. Luffy seemed to bend like the rubber his limbs were made of and the shots all missed. Once the guard was out of ammo, still clicking the trigger in terror, Luffy punched him to the floor and led onwards. And last was floor 11 where it seemed someone finally knew there were intruders in the base. 5 guards rushed from behind, screaming for them to cease and desist. Nami, get down. She did just that, throwing herself to the floor as Luffy leapt over her and straight at the line of soldiers. He landed a punch to the first guard hard enough to send him flying into all of his buddies and knocking them down like dominoes. How can you hit so hard? Armament haki. I'll explain later, come on. One floor later and a now beyond impressed Nami was standing with her new escort in front of a white door with Helmeppo's name plastered on it. Luffy kicked it down like it was paper, leaving the blonde bastard himself scrambling in panic. "SS stop right now," he cried, a gun held in his trembling hands. "I'll kill you both, I don't need my DD daddy for this." Luffy's answer was to rush up and punch the jerk square in his cleft, sending him crashing into his armoire. The pirate then grinned at the katana leaned up against the wall, Nami admiring how the white leather sheath was of amazing quality. She was no sword fighter, but even she could tell it was a fine blade. From there the duo made their way up one more level and burst down the double doors to Morgan's office. One look around the room and Nami could see this was overdecorated even by captain standards. If I were a safe, where would I be? She immediately moved to a large portrait on the farthest wall, showing an imposing man with a metal-covered lower jaw and a massive axe blade for a right hand. She casually ripped the painting down and was rewarded with a massive metal door with a tumbler now sitting before her. Jackpot! Right as she was about to start cracking the code, a high-pitched bell rang out. Luffy could sense the dozens of soldiers that were preoccupied above them were rushing out as a group. He wondered what could have tipped them off. A look out the dozen-foot-long window facing the courtyard answered his question. Someone spotted Machino trying to free Kuina. "Nami, we need to go, in a minute. I need to hear the tumblers and I can't with that alarm going." Time was of the essence. Luffy rushed over, easily prying his hand into the metal and simply ripped the door open. Massive stacks of barris, several pieces of golden jewelry and an aged piece of parchment rested inside, now free for the taking. "Quick, grab something." Though astonished once again, Nami quickly sobered up and reached for the sea chart along with as much cash as she could get her hands on and stuffing it all in the burlap sack she kept balled up under her shirt. She was snapped out of it by Luffy picking up the colossal wooden desk and flinging the entire thing out the window, shattering it. "What are you doing?" "Making a path back outside, grab on. We're gonna save those two." He then planted his hands on the bottom of the window frame and then stretched himself back. Nami hopped onto his back, holding onto her loot with all she could as her arms were wrapped around Luffy's torso. Gum gum rocket. He flew out of the base like a slingshot, Nami screaming in panic all the while as she noticed that the other ladies were facing a firing squad. "We're gonna die. No way, I'll never let someone hurt my crew." Luffy landed smack in the middle between Machino and the Marines just as the latter opened fire. Nami, again, chucked herself to the ground and said a small prayer for the first decent pirate she'd ever met. And once again, she was forced to check whether or not she was dreaming as the bullets bounced off of him. "What the fuck?" Kuina yelled, clearly blown away herself. "How the hell are you still alive?" "I'm a rubber man," Luffy said cheerfully, "and here's your sword back." He tossed her the katana. The moment her hand wrapped around the handle, Kuina's entire demeanor changed. A smirk broke out over her face as she drew the sword in an instant and noticed the Marines edging away. They knew fully well they were dealing with one of the most notorious bounty hunters in the East Blue. There was one man not impressed, however. Standing over 9 feet tall and glowering at the whole crew of intruders was the infamous Captain Morgan himself. So one of you has eaten a devil fruit." "Yep." Luffy cheered. "Bullets don't hurt me." The captain was less than impressed, raising his famous axe hand at the group. "So, as of now, you are all guilty of jailbreaking, assaulting Marine officers, vandalizing my office, stealing tax money collected from the citizens." Nami tried to hide the sack of loot behind her before frowning. "Wait, since when do the Marines collect taxes? And worst of all, defying my authority. You are all hereby sentenced to be executed immediately. Men, kill them." Seeing as how guns wouldn't work, they all drew their cutlasses and charged in. The closest of these, however, was soon caught in a blade lock with Kuina. "Now, let me tell you what's actually going to happen," she said, grinning as the seaman tried in vain to overpower. "The 4 of us are gonna walk out of here with all of your money after I skewer that blonde little bitch who thought it was a good idea to grope my tits while I couldn't fight back. But, I might be willing to let that slide if you all let us go quietly." 3 more Marines tried rushing up from the side. In a literal flash of steel, she slashed them all lieutenant in place. "You know, you just attacked several Marines," Luffy pointed out. "What happened to not being a criminal?" "TCH, that's not important. Now that I'm free, I'll pursue my dream no matter what. I will be the world's greatest swordsman." Luffy's eyes twinkled, even as several Marines rushed at him. Thankfully, Machino stepped in with both her hands outstretched and let loose the biggest blast she could muster to the utter horror of the soldiers and the amazement of Kuina. "You've got one heck of a crewmate there, yeah? You want to be one too?" As several more men tried and failed to cut her down, Kuina weighed her options. On the one hand, she'd have a bounty and that would mean having to deal with not only more Marines but other hunters looking to cash in. On the other hand, it would mean some backup and she couldn't deny that these two were fighters on her level. "Fine. But I should warn you that if you ever get in the way of my dream, I won't hesitate to end you." Luffy just laughed at the threat. Awesome, the king of the pirates needs the world's greatest swordsman. And with that, Nami watched as the now 3-person pirate crew manhandled Morgan's entire force. Between Luffy's rubbery punches, Machino's blasts and Kuina's mastery of the sword, over 50 men were lying on the ground in a few minutes. The only exception was Morgan himself, fuming in anger. You bunch of useless maggots. But sir, 2 of them have devil fruits, we can't. Quiet. Everyone here is officially ordered to fire on themselves. What? Machino yelled, completely disgusted. Are you insane? You can't order your men to commit suicide. First Marine Captain Axe Hand Morgan. I have earned that title through my superior strength. You will all respect my authority or I will. His boast was cut off by Luffy storming up and socking him in the face, knocking the iron-jawed captain backwards with a single hit without any armament haki. You talk too much. The captain reared up, snorting mad as he raised his axe with a scream. Die! His swing split the ground, a chasm opening beneath his feet and a dozen feet away. Too bad Luffy easily sidestepped and stretched his leg back. Gum gum whip. The rubbery limb smacked Morgan in the knees, breaking his stance. Luffy then rushed up to sock Morgan again only to meet the flat of an axe instead. Morgan flung him arm out to force Luffy away, but the pirate gave him a spinning kick to the face that knocked the captain on his knees. The other Marines couldn't believe it, the captain was losing. Stop right there, everyone turned to see Helmeppo, once again ignoring that no one wanted him around. That was especially true for Nami thanks to the gun held to her head. Why you leave my daddy alone, or I'll shoot this girl right where she stands. Yeah, no, Helmeppo turned around just in time to see Machino blast his leg with a burst of her power, sending the cowardly bully tumbling to the ground in agony. Machino then snatched up the gun and threw as far away as possible, flashing Luffy a thumbs up. He turned to give her the same, as Morgan rose up behind him. You criminal scum, I'll personally behead each and every one of you. Is that so? Kuina widened her stance, her sword in its sheath once again. Want to test that, metal on metal? He roared like a bull and charged right at her, ignoring Luffy completely, but the bounty hunter didn't flinch. She kept one hand on her sheath and the other on the handle, her gaze as sharp as her weapon as Morgan raised his famous axe for a killing blow. One sword style, Morgan's blade came down in a flash, ready to cleave her in half. Lion song. Except Kuina was now behind him, faster than he could blink. He heard the click of her sword re-entering its holster before a sickening wet sound consumed his ears. He looked down and saw his entire right arm, including his famous axe hand, fell to the ground. The entire base was horrified to see the great Captain Morgan fall to his knees, screaming in bloody murder as his stump of an arm gushed red. Hey, pathetic, Kuina boasted, guess you're one-hand Morgan now. That was awesome. Luffy cheered, stars in his eyes. Daddy, no, oh, shut up already. Helmeppo was silenced by a smack to the face courtesy of Nami, clutching her hidden bow staff with white knuckles. That's for staring at my chest all day, you creep, she beamed him again, mangling his face and leaving him a broken, gibbering heap on the ground. You bitch, Morgan slowly stood up, clutching his leaking limb with his only remaining hand. You think this will stop me? I'll hunt you all down like the dogs you are. Leave her alone. Morgan turned to see Luffy glaring at him. No one threatens my friends. Friends? Pirates don't have friends. How would you know? You're not a pirate? Luffy stretched both his arms back, even as Morgan tried to clobber him with his fist. You worthless scum, gum gum. His arms rocketed forward and wrapped around Morgan's waist, making the captain stop and pause. Metronome. Luffy flung himself backwards into a suplex, sending his elongated arms lying like catapults with Morgan as the projectile. The captain screamed in terror as he was rushing directly for the roof of the base. And, even worse, the just-installed stone statue of himself he was having men put up today. Morgan collided with his own vanity project head-on, cracking the stone with his own skull before getting whipped back the other way. The people of Shell's Town just suddenly saw the feared captain crash outside of the base like a rag doll before getting flung back into the air. Over and over again, the captain was slammed into the ground until Luffy's arms finally ran out of space and snapped back. The now comatose captain was now covered in bruises, his metal jaw cracked and blood still seeped from his lost arm. The only sign he was still alive was the quiet groan he let out, in more pain than he could ever remember feeling. And such a commotion meant that the people of Shell's Town, including Koby and Nika, rushed to the gate to see the unbeatable captain laying in a broken heap amongst his own troops. Holy shit, Kuina muttered. The whole yard was completely silent, nobody daring to move. That is until all of the sailors stood up, picked up their guns and tossed them into the air. We're free, they all hollered, dancing and jumping for joy. I can finally sleep at night again. Serves you right, you tin pot tyrant. Quick, somebody call HQ. He won't even be allowed as a cabin boy. And throw that Helmeppo in jail too. That jackass made me throw a little girl over the wall. Luffy and the three girls watched in amazement as the Marines completely ignored them, then got another surprise as the townspeople busted down the gates and crowded around them. Luffy laughed in delight as the townspeople gathered him on their shoulders and led him through town, singing his praises while a smiling Machino, a calm Kuina and a flabbergasted Nami all followed the crowd. Several hours later, Luffy was patting his stomach behind a stack of plates as three ladies sat around the same table. "Man, which one of us went 3 weeks without food?" Kuina kidded, although that was freaking delicious. "Thank you so much," Machino said to Rika's mother. "Oh, it's no trouble, you're the town heroes, consider all of this covered." Nami let out a breath of relief, patting her sack of treasure with grin. "I gotta say, Luffy, you really are a cut above other pirates, and not just in strength. You're actually a pretty decent guy." "Ah, thanks, and you're really handy with that bow staff. How often do you train?" "Oh, what, that? PSH, it's nothing. I just needed something that was easier to hide than a sword and didn't cost ammo. I'm no fighter." "You shouldn't sell yourself short," Machino told her. "With a little bit of training from Luffy, you could probably handle yourself in a fight. But I can't do any of the insane things he devil fruit or freaky martial arts powers." "Not yet. I can teach you those techniques." Nami gaped at him once again, now with a hint of blushing on her cheeks. "Really? You give away info like that?" "Of course. I want to have the strongest crew on the seas, so I need to bring everybody up as much as possible." "Now you're speaking my language," Kuina cheered, downing her beer in one gulp. "I hope you're ready to teach because I'm gonna learn all your tricks." After a bit more food and merriment, in walked a small crowd of Marines led by a tall tan man in a blue Marine cap. "Excuse me, did you happen to say you were pirates earlier?" "Yep," Luffy nodded, "with Nami and Kuina, that makes it 4. "Don't count me, damn it, we're business partners, that's it." "I see. Regardless of that, I'm afraid I must ask you to leave." "What?" yelled the crowd who were watching them eat. The lead sailor ignored them. "While I am just as grateful for Morgan being deposed as anyone else, as a Marine I cannot sit idly by as pirates are within our town. As thanks, we will not report you to headquarters, but you must leave immediately." Luffy could sense the growing unease, up until the people started shouting at the lieutenant for daring to treat their saviors this way. He didn't see any issue with getting up and leaving until he notices Machino scowling. "You okay, Luffy? I had to deal with that purple-suited prick for almost half an hour while he treated me like a trophy. I'm setting this straight now." He rolled his shoulders, admitting he couldn't stand watching her being carted around either, so he allowed it. The bartender turned buccaneer stood up, slammed her hands on the table to command the room's attention. "So, let me get this straight," she asked, her words clipped. "We saved the entire town, including you, from being under that lunatic's thumb. And our reward is getting chased out like common criminals?" The lieutenant stepped back before leveling a glare at her. "It is a Marine's duty to carry out justice, and pirates are the enemy of that." "Enemies? We're the reason you all don't have that bastard treating this town like his own kingdom? Where's the justice in that?" Luffy chuckled as the crowd quickly turned to their side, shooting daggers at the lieutenant. He could hear them all muttering about how right Machino was. They didn't deserve to be treated like this. He glanced at Nami, trying to not burst into laughter at how effortlessly Machino had won them all over. Then he saw Kuina, taking a refill from Rika's mom with a carefree smile. "Well, the Marine stuttered. It's nothing personal, protocol just says." "Protocol, huh? Where is it in protocol that a captain gets to have carte blanche over an entire town? Where's the protocol that lets a captain order his own men to fire on themselves? Where's the protocol for letting the son of the captain, a civilian at that, have a woman executed for kicks?" "He did WHAAAAT," the crowd roared, having clearly not heard about Helmeppo's wager or his sudden change. The lieutenant darted over to Kuina, kicking back. She glared back at him before the most vulpine grin imaginable crossed her face. "Oh yeah, he was going to do that. Not to mention he starved me and offered to let me go early if I entertained him in his room." Now people were pouring into the restaurant, demanding the lieutenant's head. His cronies were of no help, getting yelled at on all sides by pissed-off passers-by. The lead Marine looked around, desperate for something to resolve this, and spotted Nami's sack. Fine, they can stay. But that woman there needs to return the stolen money. That's government property from our treasury." Nami gained a shrewd look of her own. "Oh, this isn't from the treasury. It was from a huge safe in Morgan's office. I figured these were the taxes he was collecting." "Bullshit." Someone in the crowd yelled. "That guy was charging us just to live." "Yeah, he said it was to fund his greatness and anyone who didn't pay got thrown in jail." "I say let her have it. I'm 10 times happier letting her get rich than that psycho Morgan." Now all of the lawmen were sweating bullets. They were officially out of options. The townspeople hated Morgan and loved these pirates for saving them. But every bone in their well-trained bodies was telling they couldn't just let swashbucklers do as they pleased. There had to be some way to resolve this before the town went to hell in a handbasket. Then the lieutenant spotted Rika, the little girl sobbing on a bar stool near her mother. His heart breaking at the sight, he went over and leaned down. "What's the matter, young lady?" "I'm sorry, Mr. Marine, it's okay, Rika. Tell us what's bothering you." The crowd started to calm down, worried that they might have upset the girl. "Well, it's just that pirate over there," she pointed to Luffy. "He saved me. From when Helmeppo made somebody throw me over the wall." Her finger then moved to Kuina, raising an eyebrow. "And she saved me from the big nasty wolf Helmeppo be brought in here." Rika put on the saddest possible look imaginable, making the entire crowd gasp at her torment. "PP, please let them go. I wouldn't be alive without them." She then sobbed into her hands, making her mother rush up to comfort her. "How dare you? She's absolutely right. My daughter would be dead twice over without these nice folks. Shame on you for trying to run them out of town." That tore it. The crowd was ready to stampede and even mob the base. The lieutenant held up his hands and bowed before the Straw Hats, all of whom were smiling at him. Hey, silly me. What I meant to say was thank you very much for assisting our town. Feel free to rest and relax here until tomorrow." The people of Shell's town cheered, their anger gone as they scattered to enjoy the first relaxing day they've had in years. The lieutenant left in a hurry as the Straw Hats noticed that Rika looked perfectly fine. "You looking to be an actress, kid?" Nami asked, thoroughly impressed. "I just didn't want you guys getting punished for helping us." "Hey, it works for me," Luffy laughed, holding up his empty stack of plate. "More meat, please." The girls all laughed, happy that they had a moment to relax for a change. That night, Kuina simply enjoyed having her freedom back as she hopped from bar to bar. All the while, she kept her precious blade glued to her hip to make sure it would never be taken from her. Nami was all cozy in a hotel suite, happily counting up the money she pulled from Morgan's safe. She chuckled as she pulled out a massive diamond necklace, easily 5 carats worth. "I've got to hand it to you, Luffy. You really know how to make a girl happy. With this and Alvida, I've made a killing already." But Luffy didn't notice. He and Machino were too busy in the penthouse of the nicest hotel in town, enjoying the fact that they had a proper bed to lay on for the first time since leaving Fuchsia Village. "Machino, you're so beautiful. Fuck, I'm gonna do it. Luffy, fill me up this time." And after a wonderful night of passion, it did raise an issue for Machino. She was a thoroughly sated mess, but she could tell Luffy was still raring to go as she was getting under her side of the covers. "Either I need to toughen up a lot or I'm going to need some help." Luffy had another issue. He concentrated for a moment, returning to Nika's realm. "Sorry Casanova, but you're not up my alley if you know what I mean." "No, I don't," Luffy blinked before shaking his head. "So, Garp told me where babies came from. And considering what you just did, you're worried about Machino getting pregnant?" "Yeah, I don't think I'm ready to be a dad yet." "Well, then it's a good thing you have some amazing willpower." "Huh? You don't want to get a girl preggers, right?" "Yeah? Then you won't. It's that simple." Luffy, for once, looked skeptical. "I'm pretty sure it doesn't want most people don't have gods living in their head and hundreds of people reading their exploits. Look, it's a really long story. But the gist of this, as long as you don't want to have kids until after you turn emu into paste, then you won't. Keep it simple, stupid, right?" The pirate just shrugged, figuring that was good enough an answer for him. He soon returned to reality and kissed Mackin goodnight, thankful for having such a woman in his life. However, the fun had to come to an end for the newly formed Straw Hat Pirates. The lieutenant gave them until tomorrow morning so, at the crack of dawn, Luffy awoke and began gathering his new crewmates. They arrived at the dock to find a small fishing boat had been donated to them, fully stocked with provisions and some extra clothes for the ladies. They also found a plate of rice balls with a note from Rika, thanking Kuina once again and assuring these were made with salt instead of sugar. "Ah, isn't that sweet? Machino odd, you got a fan, Kuina." The swordswoman just rolled her eyes but helped herself to the dumplings anyway, muttering about how hungry she still was. Luffy did spot the smile on her face as she enjoyed them, before turning to untie their new boat. The only exception was Nami, who stuck with the dinghy she got from Alvida which she loaded with her bags of loot. The redhead then caught Luffy staring at her. "What? You can join us if you want. I keep telling you, I'm not a pirate, this is all temporary, okay?" Luffy just chuckled, figuring she would come around sooner or later. He tossed Nami some rope to hook their boats together and soon the group cast off from Shell's town. But then Luffy heard someone rushing up towards them. Koby. "Hey, you guys?" The girls all gaped as Koby was now dressed in a white shirt, blue slacks tucked into boots with a lighter blue scarf around his neck. "Koby, you joined the Marines?" Machino cheered. "Yeah, I followed that lieutenant back to the base and asked him to join and how I want to stop pirates and corrupt jerks like Morgan, and I couldn't have made it without you all. See you later." Luffy waved goodbye, only to stare as the entire Marine force assembled behind a saluting Koby. The entire line of sailors copied the salute. Pirates getting sent off by Marines, now I've seen everything. Kuina appreciated in between her onigiri. Nami shook her head, wondering how so many impossible things were happening. But maybe he could make one more happen. Back on the dock, Koby turned to his new company. Sir, does this mean we have to go a week without food now? Negative, chore boy. Those aren't pirates here. As far as I'm concerned, those are heroes.